Welcome back to the home studio. Actually, technically, we are at the new home studio here at the Stevie Richards Show. This is episode 51. We are back. We are approaching 1 year of the Stevie Richards Show, and we'll turn it over to my well-rested vacation co-host, James Romero. Man, I got to learn how to talk again.
Take 5 that was as well. We're keeping that one.
Keeping it.
Yeah. What did I do? All right. So if anyone wants to know the story about how unrested I am, you're gonna have to sign up to the Patreon. Because what did I do? Was that a 20-minute story about that one trip?
Minimum. It was actually, if people want to know, we'll give them a little clue here on YouTube. A little bit of a teaser. My goodness, Philly accent already. If you picture what I picture is that scene from Mission Impossible in Rome where he's driving the little car and drifting and going down steps and all the roughest terrain. I think it was Dead Reckoning Part 1, where he was driving the little like kind of like Volkswagen Beetle type car, where you drove a Toyota Corolla through the mountains, literally, of Greece.
Yeah, I said it was like La Paz in Bolivia. Like, it was just pure terror, the road of death. So, yeah, it was awful. Anyway, that's a 20-minute story. We really trashed that rental car, let me tell you. Okay, we're going to do the intro, and then I'm going to have a bit of an update on merchandise that I want to get out to everybody. So, very first off, of course, there is Stevie Richards Fitness. I encourage you all to go there. Get fit with Stevie, buy some of the stuff. He does reviews of various gym equipment, and he has... what's the latest on there at the moment?
Well, the latest, I have something for Nordic Curls from Tib Bar Guy. You ever see that guy? He does a lot of stuff for lower body health and everything. But my hamstrings, and it's all connected to my lower back too. So this will help my back. It's a back extension, but also a Nordic curl. And you don't know what that is? Picture a leg curl, but about 100 times more difficult than a leg curl.
You're not selling that to me. I can't do leg curls, man.
And they use the code Stevie10 to save on this highly recommended machine that I'm scared to use.
Man, yeah, that sounds like a torture device full of your
well, you
garage
think the other
full of
one's
torture
like
devices.
some kind of sexual torture device, the Flexicon, the resistance band all-in-one trainer.
Yeah, I've never seen you use it, though.
Oh, God. Well, thanks
seen
for
photos
watching
of
my
it.
channel. There's probably 7
Dude, I haven't watched
videos.
anything in 2 weeks.
I've had videos up for longer than 2 weeks. I got you painted into a corner now. Not the corner where this is a little not quite symmetrical. We're going to work on that in future episodes. I know that's bugging you.
Oh, for God's sake, right, no, there's something else that was bugging Stevie as well, and that's just because he was out of focus on the last episode.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I feel your pain. I feel your pain, because, man, that microphone was... No, I'm sorry, it was the background. It was almost like a fitting end to, like, the former, stick-on, like, foam squares that you put on, because I saw them in 4K. They were that clear.
That's what
You
the cinema camera.
in cataracts vision.
It was the 12K cinema camera on the acoustic phone panels, and I had the iPhone 3GS on me at the same time. Yeah, it drove me nuts. Chris was trying to use all the AI sharpening tools that he could find.
You said you didn't want it out.
No, I did.
You actually said you didn't want it out.
Well, that's my OCD right there. But it turned out episode 50 was another Q&A episodes, which what do we have? Another 700-800 questions to cover after that one. So
About that,
yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. But we appreciate all the questions, and that got a lot of great feedback. And it actually translates sometime into what we're going to talk about today is a lot of news or other things that kind of segue with those questions. So please keep those questions coming. We're going to try to catch up as quickly as we can.
Oh, yeah, we're not telling people how to actually send in questions because we've got too many. But I think we'll open it up once again with all the questions that were submitted. Thank you so much, everybody who did. A lot of these questions will come up in future episodes Take Drinks that we are saving, and some will come up in future episodes of fan question dedicated episodes as well. Now, a couple more things with Stevie. One is the cameo, of course, Stevie Richards cameo, nothing to do with me. We just like to get it out there because ever since we started mentioning it, he's getting more orders than, quite frankly, most people on Cameo, considering the fact that he's on the charts of most ordered And the reason he's one of the most ordered personalities on Cameo is because he puts more effort in than basically anybody else on the platform. So you definitely get your money's worth, and you get your time as well with Stevie, whatever it is you wish to request of him within reason, not that sort of bumming throne or whatever it is you have that torture device in your garage. Or who knows? I mean, a special order. The price might be right.
Everybody know there's no
Everybody's got a price.
NDAs attached to this Salon One trainer that I own. Okay, I'm free and clear. It's strictly for working out. Not I have one computer brain which barely works half the time. I don't have multiple ones like a certain maniac that we know.
And most importantly of all is, of course, the Stevie Richards Show. Patreon, where we have like the podcast within a podcast, like the pre-show that we do. This one was probably 50 minutes of us just talking about your house move and blah, 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 and everything else, and technical stuff and future plans with WSI and everything else. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, I encourage you to go watch that. But most importantly, the big hook for Patreon is the weekly watch-alongs. What is happening? Well, what should have been happening, and now what has been bumped for the 10th week in a row to make way for something else.
Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing the classic Jimmy Kimmel, Matt Damon bumping test off the watch-alongs like each and every week. So there is a test watch-along somewhere. It's going to become a meme, but that has been bumped back another week for one of the problem with this watch along was trying to find the good match between the Rock and Roll Express and Midnight Express. We found one of like 1,000, and we were just mesmerized because somehow we said this on the watch along, the Rock and Roll and the Midnight Express felt like they were moving faster than they do today with the spot fest that they have in most matches. But we could digest everything, and we could tell what they were doing, and there was so much nuance and detail. You said Dennis Condrey just trying to lock the wrist and push the arm down to keep him pinned right there has not been done in many, many years, if not decades. And that match was probably, 39 or 40 years old. I think it was either 85 or 86.
It's 86, wasn't it?
86.
Yeah, I think so.
Crazy stuff. And they actually had a match. We might want to do a watch along on that, maybe even here, 2006 on an indie with the original Midnight Express, Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton against Ricky and Robert. And you had asked, everybody can comment below, what's your version of the Midnight Express you like? Is it Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton, Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton, or Bart Gunn and Bob Holly?
Ooh. I thought you were going to say Randy Rose. No, is it Randy Rose?
Randy Rose and Dennis Condrey, yes. Midnight versus Midnight. Yeah, good call.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah, the new Midnight Express. I totally... Like
Beautiful Bart and Bombastic Bob, I think it was.
No, it was Bodacious Bob.
Oh, sorry.
Or one was Bodacious, one was Bombastic. You've met Bob Holly. Would you call him Bodacious or Bombastic?
I've survived. He was so much fun to work, and he made you work. And literally, like, it was just, it's one of those things kind of like a Val Venus match. You know what you're getting. You're going to be hit pretty hard in safe places, and you can hit him hard in safe places, and it actually frees you guys up to really work and not do the choreographed type of matches, but the actual word that they should use in every match is struggle. You had said before, the Midnight and the Rock and Roll that we watched on the watch along on Patreon, it didn't look like cooperation. You knew they weren't resisting, but it didn't feel like you were just kind of letting the guy put you wherever he wanted to put you.
So that is on the Patreon, the Stevie Richards Show Patreon. I think finally the link is in the description after saying it was for months on end and then it never was. So we were getting all those subscribers without having any easy way of actually finding the page. But anyway, the link is in the description of this video and every subsequent video coming out. Now, there's one thing I also want to make mention of. That's merchandise. So we said a few weeks ago, right, we're finally bringing out T-shirts. There was the BWO, the Stevie Richards Show, and Stevie Night Heat T-shirts. And, you know, a lot of you have gone out and purchased them. Right, okay, we've got a problem. So we've gone through a company called Teespring. And Teespring is someone I've used before with Duchess stuff. And weirdly, maybe not Duchess stuff, but yeah, Duchess stuff, but also Don Morocco's stuff, right? A few years ago. Back then, when we were using it a couple of years ago, it was all working fine. You get your stuff, and we would get paid. Now, we've had a couple of people say to us, our stuff hasn't arrived yet. Now, this has nothing to do with us. This is a third-party company that YouTube works with. And the reason we picked them is because I knew for a fact that they integrated the T-shirts into the at least the desktop, if not the mobile version of YouTube as well. Anyway, I've tried to trigger a payout, and they're not paying out. A couple of people have said that they've not received merchandise, and so we can only apologise. We do not do this. We basically have been recommended a third-party company that works with YouTube, and now they're apparently less reliable than they once were. So if you are not receiving your stuff, then please write to Teespring. They've got a customer service place, where email that you can find through the website, and then you just quote your what would you call it? Your invoice number, I guess.
Your order number.
To them, say I've not received this. Your order number, yeah. And so for anybody who we steered to them for merchandise, we're very sorry. Apparently, they're not as good as they once were. If you haven't got your stuff, please chase them up. We have no say in this.
And we haven't gotten our stuff either, so we're right there with you.
No. I ordered two T-shirts. They've not come. So I'm really upset with them. I'm chasing up stuff. I'm chasing a payout that they're not paying out for me for something that was ages ago. So I'm not happy with them at all. We've got rid of that link from all YouTube videos now, so you won't be able to use... I mean, you can still use the link. I discourage you from doing it. So we're probably going to end up with someone more reputable like Shopify, who also, I only just realised, also does that advertising integration with YouTube videos as well. So, I mean, hopefully you'll accept our apologies on that. This is something that I sort of came up with doing, really, as far as using that company specifically, because I've used them before, and in the past they were good. Now, apparently, nowhere near as reliable. So, once again, if you haven't got your stuff, you will have to chase it with the company. We have no say with any merchandise. This is almost like a drop. It's not a drop ship thing. It's like a print to order kind of thing that they run, and basically we have an account with them.
Well, we usually not to interrupt you, sorry. We should have this maybe on another meeting, but people should know. I've used Pro Wrestling Tees before, and Ryan and I have communicated the here and there. It's essentially maybe the same business model with a more, I guess, reliable shipping, customer service, all that stuff. Do you think that's an avenue maybe to get on a call with Ryan and talk to him about a possible partnership with PWT?
Yeah, maybe.
Because that's right in line with the demographic of anybody wanting wrestling T-shirts would go there. I mean, Shopify is a whole thing where we could sell more product, a wider range of products, but Pro Wrestling Tees also, we were almost going to get the little wrestling buddies. I was going to get some of those made. So we may want to comparison shop Shopify and PWT to see what would work best for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll figure out what's best. The only thing Pro Wrestling Tees can't do is that like integration within the YouTube video. You would have to, we'd have to direct people to the link and stuff, which is why I wanted to go with one of the YouTube recommended ones and where it's got us. So once again, I wanted to make everybody aware of this. I think, like, unlike most podcasts, we will actually just give you the unvarnished truth on that. It's just like, I ordered 2 T-shirts, have been gone 2 weeks, they're still not here. So yeah, I'm not. And the thing is that I bought them through the shop. It's not like I ordered like when I was writing the books, and you could order author copies, and they would take forever, but they'd be a lot cheaper. It works out about the same if you just buy them, and they've not arrived. So once again, don't. If you have ordered something, don't rest on your laurels if it's not arrived in a while. Once again, we don't have any say in this. This is a third-party company recommended, one of the recommended or authorized companies, and I wouldn't recommend them at all. So, once again, we're going to be getting rid of those, and we're going to be finding a different avenue, a different method of making T-shirts, and hopefully some more merchandise as well. Right, so that out of the way. This episode is going to be referring to wrestling news of the last few weeks. The reason being is we're recording this on a Thursday. We needed a quick turnaround is really the answer. But also, there's been a ton of stuff that's happening in the last few weeks. I've been away. Stevie has been busy with a house move. And I thought it might be... One thing I really want to talk about as well was R-Truth, and we just didn't have time. Because we talked about him, him getting fired, and then he was coming back and everything. But we didn't have time, and there's a lot of stuff here that we probably won't have time for as far as getting round to. But let's talk about maybe the biggest news of the last few weeks. It's the future of AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery. So, of all of this, do you know what's going on here? Or are you basically hearing this for the first time?
I'm hearing the AEW portion of this for the first time, or reading the show notes when you sent them this morning. I know about Warner Brothers Discovery splitting. I know how important, especially this Superman movie coming out on July 11th and the new DCU. That's what they're really banking on. And once I saw that James Gunn was taking over and, rebooting the entire DC universe, I was like, wow, brands like AEW and sinking money into those, I think right now they're going to throw everything into that movie division. And of course, the DCU TV shows like Peacemaker and other things that they're going to have. Where does AEW, I guess that's where we start. Where's AEW in the pecking order, in the priority list of this new company that's, WBD, but they're kind of splitting everything up?
Yeah, I think it should be known right now off the bat before I read any of this is that Warner Brothers Discovery is currently $37 billion with a B dollars in debt. Heavily in debt. So I think this is part of the reason why they're splitting the company in two, I guess. Was it like half a sports division? And let me just read the whole thing. This is from SE Scoops, by the way. Warner Brothers Discovery has made the decision to split into two companies in 2026, a move that will have major ramifications in entertainment. With AEW maintaining a strong relationship with Warner Brothers Discovery, fans have been wondering what this means for the All Elite promotion. Warner Brothers Discovery plans to split into two entities by mid-2026. The first, called Global Networks, will house TBS, TNT, Discovery Plus, and Bleacher Report, the current home of AEW's Dynamite and Collision. The division will be led by Gunnar, Wiedenfels, WBD's current chief financial officer. Now, this guy has apparently got a real reputation for cutting costs. Bear that in mind once again. The second company, Streaming and Studios, will include HBO, HBO Max, Warner Brothers Film and TV Production, and DC Studios. It will be led by David Zaslav, who is WBD's current president and CEO. And he's also the guy that Tony Khan often references as well when talking with, Turner executives and WBD. So, that being said, it seems that that's not going to go under Zaslav. That's going to go under the chief financial officer who likes to cut costs.
That is never, ever a good sign when you have a financial person in charge of a creative product. That is not good because now you have, well, we talked about it. It was connected to the Ron Killings thing, the bean counters. Now you have a bean counter that's going to want to cut back on production, props, stunts. Maybe that's a good thing for AEW and get back to actually storytelling, as Dutch Mantel would always talk about the stories really draw. But when you look at this, there's somebody, and this has been a criticism of TKO and Endeavor with WWE, that they're not wrestling people. They don't understand the full scope of the creative process of wrestling.
Yeah, but they're turning a profit in their bean counters.
Yeah, but they could turn even more of a profit but they're going, I think WWE is going off of momentum, and that momentum may run out eventually. AEW, that momentum's long gone, and now they're going to look at everything with a fine-tooth comb. They're going to look at maybe this guy who's now the chief financial officer that's running the whole network as far as AEW is concerned. Maybe he's going to say, you need to cut roster people, you need to cut this. We're not going to subsidize the arenas anymore, because doesn't the network subsidize some of these TV arenas?
WBD has some stake in AEW, but it might be a relatively small one. Tony Khan has never confirmed.
Oh, you mean a percentage of the actual? They own a percentage of the company.
Of the actual company. Yeah, but we don't know the percentage. Tony Khan has never said it outright.
Well, I would say the proof is going to be pretty soon of how much they really do control AEW and everything else. $37 billion in debt. You don't know if they're just going to outright cancel AEW. That's been kind of like rumored in the past when this broke probably a few months ago, the rumors about it. Right now it's more of an official type thing. But man, they are going to push so hard. And Discovery Plus, of course, lots of subscriptions with Magnolia Network, with Ghost Adventures. There's tons of things that have been offloaded behind the paywall. So bringing value to the subscription model to compete with Disney Plus, Netflix, and other things, that's another question. Are they going to move this possibly from free TV to behind the paywall? Like, the future of AEW is very, very fluid right now, and maybe not in a great way.
It's funny that pretty much anyone who has an over-the-top streaming subscription service always lose tons and tons and tons of money, because basically it's one giant war of attrition to see who will survive. And I think basically no one has won. I mean, Disney was losing unbelievable, untold amounts of money. And I think they were looking to only just breaking even, like maybe this year or last year or something. And I don't think HBO Max has ever turned a profit. I don't think pretty much anything has. I doubt Paramount has. Netflix definitely has. We don't know if Prime has, probably has. But most, like Peacock's a massive money loser for NBC.
Yeah, and they paid a lot of money for the WWE network, and that's very confusing about where that lies with the Netflix deal. The thing, too, is Paramount is actually connected to Walmart Plus. If you get a Walmart Plus subscription, say, meaning deliveries and stuff, you can order online, they deliver, you get a free Paramount Plus subscription with that. So I don't know how much a piece or how much the Waltons own part of, like, Paramount. Like, I mean, it's all kind of like down to like 4 or 5 major conglomerates at this point. The fact that WWED is splitting, they essentially still have the same owners in a way. They're just splitting the entities of the networks. But no matter what, wrestling is always going to be the redheaded stepchild of entertainment. If it's costing money, it's going to look at WCW. Time Warner took it over. It was drawing huge money and ratings at one point, and they didn't have the faith for that to come back. AEW didn't draw the WCW Nitro numbers during the 83 weeks. So what are we talking about? It could just be they're the dead weight, and it might not be a lot of money when you think about the $37 billion debt, but it makes the CEO look good because we're cutting. Give me another year. Give me another 3 years, 5 years, and I'll cut even more. And I don't want to see any of these people out of work. I hope that this survives. But, then again, with pro wrestling, who knows? AEW could end up on Fox, could end up on Amazon Prime. They're always hopping to different, networks and subscription services.
Yeah, I think for the most part, streaming and wrestling hasn't really worked out that well as far as Raw, because, their numbers going down on Netflix. Thing is, it depends on who you believe. If you believe Dave Meltzer, then they've basically lost 2/3 of their viewership going to Netflix, if you believe Dave Meltzer, which just seems ridiculous since they're still selling out arenas basically every single week, or at least selling huge amounts of tickets, but we don't know if that's due to momentum or whatever else it is. Other people have suggested laughably, quite frankly, but who knows? Weirder things have happened. That HBO Max is getting AEW Dynamite an extra 500,000 views per week, which is also ridiculous, because that's basically what people are also claiming Netflix, Raw and Netflix gets in its entirety. We're not getting into a big viewership thing because, quite frankly, nobody knows. But I'm going to give you Tony Khan quotes. He does what he should do in this respect. While he didn't give much away in the way of insight, Khan said, with both sides, we have great relationships with everybody at the top. He noted that WBD head David Zaslav put their deal together while Gunnar Wiedenfels, was very involved as the WBD chief financial officer. The two of them and Bruce Campbell really negotiated their most recent contract with AEW and myself and my team. So on both sides, we've got the great relationships on both sides that really love AEW and have come to be great partners with AEW. So hopefully that is true for Tony and AEW. But the thing is, I also wanted to make mention is, man, they got a huge contract. It was worth like nearly $200 million a year. All told, with the value of the streaming deal and everything, pay-per-view streaming and everything. So, I mean, they went above and beyond even the most optimistic of estimates, I guess, with their 3-year deal. But then by 2027, when it runs up, does a chief financial officer look at that and think, damn, we're paying $200 million a year for X amount of, return?
Well, the problem with that is you would think, okay, with the economy, with everybody tightening, you have $37 billion in debt or however much in 2027. But there's a premium. It seems like there's always going to be a premium, and that price is going to go up for live sports or live sports entertainment. The NFL is always going up, NBA, Major League Baseball, to the point where ESPN had to drop because they can't afford it anymore. But the price is still increasing with each passing year. The TV share, or as far as revenue share for the owners in the NFL, or you're talking about licensing deals, we thought the WWE could never break the previous record from Fox and USA when they went to Netflix. But what did they do? Because listen, there's a sucker born every minute. P.T. Barnum. Somebody's going to be a mark for this stuff and at least say, yes, Fox and Jacob Ullman couldn't do it. This person couldn't do it. This person on WBD couldn't do it. I can draw money with AEW and we'll pay them $500 million a year. Or $1 billion over however many years or how many. Here's my question. Let's back up for a second. What if this CEO says, okay, we're just canceling the contract. Here's your buyout. We're done. And I can save instantly $500 million, like instantly, and cut it. They're not going to think about, oh, what are the wrestling fans going to think? And we have to finish the storyline. No, they don't care. But is there a penalty if WBD says to AEW, no way, we're done? And will they pay that penalty and just let them go? Because you can put Law and Order SVU on and talk about the same.
I'd watch it.
I watch it too. It's just on in the background. But those Law and Order like spinoffs in the main show will forever draw TNT, TBS, and any syndication consistent ratings. They're timeless. That is the most evergreen content you can have. So why, if I'm an executive, why am I even bothering? Much less this dude's got a spiked bat in his back and I got to answer phone calls about, you think about that part, right?
You bring up a great point, is because pro wrestling in general is the worst of both worlds. Because although for some reason they've got executives snowed because they've got it more in like the sports end of things rather than scripted drama or whatever else it might be. Because, you know, people want sports for one reason. People watch it live. They watch it. 99% of people watch sports live. And therefore, people are way more likely to watch the advertising that goes along with it. Whereas wrestling in general has about the same live to pre-recorded ratio of watching as any scripted drama. There's about 70%. So they get paid sports rights, but they don't deliver that. And also because advertisers think that pro wrestling fans, they don't think anything of them really, or think very little of them, that it's hard to sell advertising on those shows as well. And the other thing that you just mentioned before is they're all first run and that's it. You don't replay wrestling. So it's like sports in the sense that you watch it once and you never see it again. Or, you know, unless you've got an archives like the network or on Max.
Well, here's my point about that wrestling, and we've talked about this before, and I've talked about it on the Russo show, the thing that's missing from wrestling that every other sport gets right is filling in the other 5 to 6 days a week with the human interest stories, with this guy's contract's coming up, this guy got a DUI, this happened. Do you know how they can fill it in? And they create storylines for NFL games, for NBA games. This guy's holding out. He's not coming to train. They have it down to a science with their own angles and storylines. 2 months. Where's Aaron Rodgers going? Is he going to sign with the Steelers? Is he going to retire? What's he going to do? That's been almost every year. And the guy before that was Brett Favre. Then training camp. Oh, Shedeur Sanders got pulled over 100 miles an hour. We got 3 days out of that for the talking heads. They can do such a better job in wrestling of hacks, but they can never release people outside of the wrestling bubble to talk about what's really going on. That's why channels like ours are successful, because they're reaching outside the wrestling bubble to see what the real objective take is, and not, well, I have to say something nice about this person because on one of the WWE shows, am I wrong? Or AEW will never give access to anybody to ever ask a hard question of Tony Khan. WWE does it too. But do you see what I mean? That's why wrestling will never grow as far as market mindset or anything like that, because they're always stuck in the same revolving door of everything.
Now, when I sent you this format, Stevie, I forgot to put the stories in an order that made any sense whatsoever. So we're jumping from AEW and the rights to Slim Jim branding on WWE's tables. My goodness, it's already been implemented. I think it was on SmackDown. There was like Queen and King of the Ring thing. I saw Cody bring the table out, and it's Oh, depressing.
You know what's so funny about that?
I mean, yeah.
That Triple H was and Stephanie were meeting with RFK Jr. about health and nutrition for the children of this country. And I laughed because you have Slim Jim, you have vodka, you have Skittles,
and a heart attack survivor.
Yeah. Yeah. He's saying, but this is where we're at right now, you know, and people get on us because I still hate the mats. And now the tables, what else is it going to be? I mean, this is never going to top the Cinnamon Toast Crunch mascot. I can't even say it. I get so excited. I want to see that dude back. Matter of fact, the Fantastic Four had the Cinnamon Toast Crunch things dancing, and I was like, I'm in heaven. But what are they going to do now? I mean, it's everything short, and the next step is honestly going to be, and it's actually more of a proven thing because Brock Lesnar having Jimmy Johns and all that stuff on his shorts, like a UFC fighter, that's the next part. We're going full NASCAR soon, and you will have LA Knight and other people with patches on their ring jackets and their trunks. Do you agree with that?
I find it also depressing. All right, so there's a meme going around where Triple H is just like, it's him in a suit and there's like advertising on every single bit of him. And do you remember Morgan Spurlock? He did Super Size Me documentary. He also, he also did one called The Greatest Movie Ever Sold. And he was doing all the media rounds. I remember it very well, where he would wear the suit with all these advertisers on them. And it reminds me of this. It's like, I don't have as big a problem with the advertising on the ring because, you know, I think Japan has done it at times. Mexico's done it. That kind of thing. If it's done in a certain way, it can actually enhance the legitimacy of a promotion. But then when you've got the Cinnamon Toasty Crunch mascot or whatever, and then I don't know what it is, but I find the table thing the most offensive.
1 second. The context of that is there's a blood feud between the bastard son that's going against his father and turned his back on his entire family. He's dating the girl they don't approve of, and they're finally having the WrestleMania match. He comes out in a paddy wagon, handcuffed, and then Ray comes down to avenge the family honor with the Cinnamon Toast Crunch mascot. Yes! I knew. He had a good balanced breakfast before going to fight Dominic. Go ahead, though. I'm sorry.
They don't serve them in prison. I know that. Okay, right. There's two different angles we've got to talk about this on. Let's just talk about it visually. I mean, does it just not just take... A table's been bastardized, prostituted out to the point of absolute pointlessness for many years now. But somehow, this is worse. This makes it worse. It just makes it look so... What is even the word? Not dangerous?
A disconnect, an ultimate disconnect, I think. Because if you're going through a table, you obviously, people are going to be like, oh, that must have hurt. But now they're like, I'm going to snap into this table like a Slim Jim. That's what there's going to be promos. I'm going to snap your leg like a Slim Jim and then turn and go. By the way, you're not even doing it right. If you want to have tables and you want free tables, like 1 million tables given to you for advertisement, Home Depot, Lowe's, Harbor Freight, Tractor Supply, they don't even get that right. That's at least stuff you buy in those stores.
The other thing is you know how WWE nowadays with TKO, they have a reputation of being a bit soulless. You know, money grubbing, trying to generate additional wealth in the highest rated, you know, the biggest drawing years in WWE's history. This is just a decision made by people in suits around a table. Hey, just everything's for sale now. I think Vince McMahon, one thing that you could say about him absolutely as a positive for him is that he thought that there were certain things that were sacred and not for sale. And now that we're with the bean counters, everything's for sale. And it just, and when you watch it, it just makes me feel like I'm just watching a corporate, which you always were pretty much, just a corporate product. It's a camel, what is it? A camel is a horse designed by committee.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But this is where I stick to my theory that everybody argues with me about, that it'll never happen, which has already happened. And I never thought that would happen in the first place. I'm talking about Vince selling WWE. This is being set up either in the next few years or by 2030 to be sold. And my guess is the Saudis are going to buy WWE, TKO, Endeavor, UFC, slap fighting, rodeo, cockroach racing, whatever sports they're coming out with. That's the only reason you build up a portfolio. You cut down cost. You get a ton of advertisers for your portfolio so somebody can come along and overpay for it.
Right, we'll move on. Should we mention the Ric Flair cancer thing? It's just so weird.
It's very weird. And obviously, I mean, the overarching theme on this is going to be no matter what we've said about Rick or anybody on a personal level, you don't want anybody to have to go through this. This is terrible. So obviously, I want a full recovery for him. This scares me because it's a skin cancer diagnosis. And I know Flair had tanned, just like any wrestler from that time and my time, and even now, there's too much tanning going on. I'm worried about that living in Florida and even with the past of tanning a lot. So this is something that generally people have, but especially wrestlers, it's an unknown, like kind of out of nowhere type thing that should be expected because we all do it. And then you're talking about self-tanners or spray tan. Those have chemicals. You don't know what those are going to do over the course of years or decades. So you can comment on whatever, but overarching, just want them to recover because you might think, skin cancer, not a big deal. Well, there's been a lot of people that have died from, a version of skin cancer, melanoma, that's more deadly than you realize. So I did not read the whole article. I just saw that it was, a skin cancer diagnosis for the second time. So if he's still tanning, I struggle with it too, but I stopped. I had to stop. It's very much
Well, it's a TV thing, though, isn't it? Because I think I spoke to Jerry Lynn about this, to drop a name on you, and he just said you've got to tan a lot because, man, those studio lights, those arena lights, they wash you out on TV. So everyone's like way more tan than probably in real life than on television they appear.
Yeah, I remember. Remember Rick Rude in the War Games match? Paul Heyman had told me a story that he was going from tanning bed to tanning bed or booth before that pay-per-view. He was about as dark and tan as you could. I mean, it was like you thought he did fake and bake like the bodybuilders. No, he legitimately went and tanned, and he might have put a layer of fake and bake over that. But yeah, I mean, it is a TV thing. Here in the studio, I just turned the color temperature to 4,500 Kelvin, so I look more tan than I am. 5,600. Yeah, those studio lights though, and now would you think it's more prevalent today? I think they do a lot more spray tanning, maybe, but.
Adam Cole does.
Yeah, but you're talking about
he's yellow.
You're talking about 4K cameras. You're talking about even on the entrances, it's those 8K cameras they use for the NFL where it looks like a video game. It will expose every pore, wrinkle, crow's feet, everything you have, and especially being pale. So Sheamus is actually he does tan, but the color temperature of the lights.
He probably does. With that being said, I think the reason why we're making mention of this is because of his reaction, right? So a couple of weeks ago, obviously, we did a video just before we both sort of like went our separate ways for a couple of weeks about Ric Flair dropping a tweet on Jim Ross saying, "Stop talking about your cancer diagnosis for attention." And then someone said, "Oh, you have skin cancer, don't you, Rick?" And Rick said no, despite the fact that Conrad Thompson, his son-in-law, was on Twitter saying that Ric Flair had been dealing with cancer. It's why he turned up to a signing or an autograph session or convention or whatever it might be with a couple of plasters or whatever it is or a couple of lesions.
Was that the one in St.
on
Augustine, Florida? Because the Swinger went to that one and I saw a picture of Flair. A recent one like last week or the week before.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago. He looked a bit rough, basically. And Conrad said, well, it's because he's dealing with skin cancer. So it was already out there. And then Ric Flair denied he had skin cancer. I'm assuming because he wasn't aware that Conrad had already said that he had. And then he admitted he did have cancer, which I find so weird. Why? I mean, it's his business, I guess, to not mention it. But I just think it's weird that he would say that about Jim when he's going through his own stuff at the same time. He had to cancel an autograph session coming up. Maybe it was even this week as we record this. because he was dealing with this melanoma. And melanoma is some serious stuff. It's not like a mole that turns black.
No, you have to have sometimes scooped out, and if it's on your face or in certain areas, it's definitely something to worry about. Yeah, I'm mystified at the timing because maybe he literally, and this is the second time, so he has a history of having the skin cancer diagnosis, correct? This is the second time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So to make that tweet about JR, and by the way, we were trying to figure it out. I think when he said in the following tweet about joking around, or if you can't take a joke from a 76-year-old man, that was for the consent form. I don't think it was for JR. Remember, we were trying to figure out.
Yeah. But he didn't even make that clear, so we just assumed it was for one or both, or we didn't. Yeah, anyway.
Well, no matter what, he can do whatever or say whatever about JR, and if he was serious, that's very, very tone deaf, especially right afterwards you get your second skin cancer diagnosis. But it doesn't make it to where we're looking and pointing, aha, like that, like Nelson in The Simpsons, aha, at him. We want him to get better, but this is a tough thing that, cancer in general, but skin cancer especially, with a history of tanning, and probably my guess would be still tanning or being outdoors in the sun and getting that. It's something, it'll kill you. I mean, if after all that Ric Flair's been through, if this is what ends up doing him in, that's pretty crazy. Plane crash, all the other stuff, 2 heart attacks in the last match, being in a medically induced coma for a couple weeks before that. And this here, I mean, but he has to worry about this because it might not be as grandiose as the other things, but this thing is definitely a killer. So please, Rick, keep up with it. Use sunscreen and stay out of the sun as much as possible. My only question based on that is he going to fire Conrad now as his co-host?
Well, that podcast, as long as it's dead. Anyway, so that being said, invest in a big sombrero or something. It's like, do you know what's really annoying? This has nothing to do with anything. I'd say annoying. It was great. The weather was fantastic. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit. It was 28, 29 centigrade every single day. And then finally waiting to come home. So it cools off a bit. It's even hotter here. I'm dying in this office. There's just nothing but glass on 2 sides.
Try putting together a North curl machine in a garage gym in 100-degree weather.
If you send me one.
Well, based on my great recommendation.
Clean it down, wipe it down first.
My great recommendation of it.
Yeah, clean it down first, just in case you used it. Right, next one. Vince McMahon. But once again, I told you this was really bad put together because I would have put the Vince thing right after the AEW thing if I realised. Vince McMahon trying to get back into business, apparently. So, this is another video. We're not going to reference it really, but Shane McMahon says Vince McMahon is doing very, very well. These TMZ interviews on the street where they corner you for a quick minute. Inside the Ropes says this. Vince McMahon, presumably with his investment firm 14th and I, recently tried to buy a controlling stake in bare knuckle fighting championships, and this revelation included surprising details about what's going on in the world of the former WWE chairman. McMahon is hoping for a return to the top of the combat sports world, and things seem to be leaning more in his favour as the story unfolds. Sources revealed last fall that McMahon was planning a new entertainment hub company, which is 14th and I, as we mentioned, and that enough of WWE's upper staff has basically joined him in this venture that started around February 2024, I guess. WWE has taken steps to distance itself from Vince McMahon as the Endeavour era rolls on. It's not Endeavour, it's TKO. But various media interviews have seen multiple superstars make positive remarks about their former boss. That's interesting. Should we... We'll mention that again. But Vince McMahon apparently recently went to who he thought was the owner of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships. It turns out it was just like the promoter and he had a small stake. It's actually Triller who own BKFC. What do you think of Vince trying to get into just basically anything combat related? Because to get into the top of wrestling, you probably need more money than even Vince has. To get to the top of UFC, MMA, you're not going to do because there's UFC, and then even with huge investment in like One championships and other things like that, or PFL, they've got nowhere. So he seems to be going for like lower level stuff that he can bring up, like Bare Knuckle FC.
Well, I think I have a theory on this. I think if Vince just wants to buy it so he can compete in Bare Knuckle Championship fighting, he wants to fight. I don't know, like, what is he, 78 now? Like when's enough? I don't know how Vince with all this. Remember, there's minimum of 18 other NDAs outside of Janelle Grant. He could have a Deshaun level or Deshaun Watson level type of fight. So once this goes away, do the other 18 come out of the woodwork one by one? Will he ever be allowed to really, truly be connected to anything? Maybe bare knuckle fighting or something a little bit more obtuse, if you want to use a Vince McMahon word, then right in your face with pro wrestling or the XFL or anything like that. Maybe he's trying to kind of dip his toe in the water and take the temperature to see if people will accept Vince McMahon back in the spotlight, even if it's a small spotlight. Do you get that feeling as well?
Well, I was going to ask you, because in a couple of years since the Janelle Grant, or just 18 months or whatever it's been, since the Janelle Grant accusations and lawsuit as Stevie wrestles with a microphone have come out, do you think that the public perception toward Vince is softening somewhat, just due to the passage of time? Time heals all wounds, you know that saying, of course. So do you think it's the same thing for
And
Vince?
by the way, I did the job to the microphone before I hit mute. Sorry about that.
You gave it
I did the Dennis Condrey double throat chop that we saw on Patreon. Oh, I forgot. We got to go, hey, what are you, smart ass? Got to do that. Actually, one of the cameos, they asked me to wish a happy birthday. My Johnny Ace voice. I'm going to do it right after we record. Does time heal all wounds? No, but I think there's a certain amount of fatigue connected to the story. And then people are like, just get it over with, settle it. And if Vince brings out a product that people enjoy, they're not going to care. Bread and circuses. Just like when he came out, I always reference this. This was the middle of all this stuff. And Vince comes out on SmackDown and people are holding their baby daughters up to him, in devotion as a shrine. He's like, where you been? And then he just walked to the ring, did a quick thing and walked out. And that was, I think, the last time we saw him, like on WWE TV. But he's been...
Yeah, didn't he do an intro on SmackDown or something? He came to after the accusations
That's
came
what I mean.
out,
And the people were cheering him and they're holding...
Welcome to SmackDown.
They're holding their children up.
Yeah.
So I guess for the adrenochrome or whatever he wanted to use. So you gave me a look about that. Hey, by the way, I know people have said in the comments about the Unforgiven episode, which we're trying to get past, that yes, I was part of the humiliation ritual, and I didn't even get invited into the Illuminati afterwards. Yes, I got jobbed out twice.
So you don't even know the handshake
I got nothing
yet.
on that. Yeah, I didn't even know what the Moloch wasn't there. Nothing, man. Come on, man. So, he got that one. So, but yeah, I think after a while, people are just like, it's kind of like football. I always use the NFL analogy. Like, Justin Tucker was the best kicker in the history of the NFL at the time. He has a Deshaun Watson level type of accusations going about massages. Nothing about it. The minute he started missing field goals last season and he wasn't what he was, now we have morals and ethics. We got to get rid of this guy. Do you see what I mean? So people, if Vince delivers a product that people want to watch, they enjoy, they're not going to care. Do you concur with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will. I mean, it's almost worrying the amount of people, because obviously nothing's been proved in court. It's one side's word against the other ultimately. But it's a pretty damning, 68-page or whatever it was, civil suit levied at you with many heavy accusations against Vince. But there's already been a lot of top WWE stars, all-timers that have basically come out to love on Vince McMahon in the last, few months.
And that's my question there. Are you going to have an Undertaker or John Cena and other people that are going to join him after whatever time in WWE? The executives are very loyal to Vince. We saw some of the top ones instantly work with Vince after this when he started his, the 14th and I. I mean, what was the one guy? He was like really high up in WWE for many years. I forget the name. It escapes me, but that was one of the first people. Other people came over. So he's building a network of employees and executives And everybody,
Like Brad Blum, that's one.
I think that was one of them. Yeah, there was multiple ones.
Yeah.
So they're incredibly, and does that say something about TKO and the Triple H version of WWE? That there's executives that don't trust the vision there.
Well, I think that's also interesting because, okay, we'll get to that in a second. Here's the big thing. Do you think Vince McMahon is going to try and get into wrestling again? Despite the fact, let's keep in mind that he hates wrestling. He's always hated the term wrestling. He always wanted to use sports entertainment, and he's also tried to start over the decades at least 10 different companies or ventures outside of wrestling that all failed, including the XFL twice. The second one wasn't quite his fault, I guess, with COVID. But, like, do you think he's desperate just to get back into wrestling?
I think Vince doesn't want to be retired from anything. He loves to work. He lives to work. He can't sit still and watch a movie or a TV show or a game or anything. He has to always be working. I will say this. I have a question for you after this. Vince is going to be somebody that's going to try with this bare knuckle fighting to create a pro wrestling style atmosphere, pro wrestling storylines, characters. He's going to try to recreate like a Conor McGregor type of draw within the bare knuckle fighting championship. My question there is, speaking of the word fatigue, now that there's no Chael Sonnen, there's no Conor McGregor, the curtain's been kind of pulled back that all that's a work. Are we now crossing that Rubicon where you can't recreate the suspension of disbelief to think this guy's even Colby Covington? People are like, oh, it's all an act. They're kind of like over the whole thing of pro wrestling in legitimate sports. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Creating an aura, and we need that though. I mean, who's interesting in UFC? No one. If you think Sean O'Malley's interesting, then
the problem is
the old UFC.
The problem is you can create a buzz, you can create interest, you can create mystique and intrigue, but they're doing this. Here's mystique and intrigue. Here's a buzz. They're shoving it down people's throats and answering the questions. This is what's wrong with wrestling today. They answer the questions before the fans even get a chance to ask the question and anticipate the answer. And I think we're past that point now where everybody's so smartened up to anything. How do you trick them again into enjoying it?
Right. So I think the real question is, do you think Vince will go back into wrestling? If he does go back into wrestling, how does he go about doing it? Does he try and... He won't have enough money to buy WWE unless he's got so many unbelievably wealthy backers that then he'd never be a majority, decision maker there anyway. Does he try and buy something like a TNA or even an MLW? So at least you've got a bit of infrastructure and some wrestlers and a bit of a TV presence, maybe. I don't know. Or what? But I think almost, as soon as the Janelle Grant thing is done, if it ever gets done, I'm sure it will do eventually, this is actually almost the best time to strike because, as you said the word fatigue, I think people are getting fatigued with the new way TKO is running WWE. Very few matches, very long shows. It's sustained for a while, but now people are just getting... I get the feeling that, I personally am getting more bored with it. And also, AEW is... 2025 for AEW has been better than 2024. I think that's fair to say as well. But there just seems to be room for a third. Do you think this is the right time for Vince to, in the next year or two, to dip his toe back
I think
in?
the best thing for Vince McMahon to do is actually attach himself or buy a wrestling company that already exists and try to go with that. I still stick by my point. It's just strictly theory. I know there's all these different parameters and things that are going on, especially with the NDAs, the Janelle Grant lawsuit, all that stuff. But I still believe the easiest path for everybody to benefit is for Vince McMahon to be an on-air character with AEW. And he can save it.
But I don't think he'd ever do it. Shane wouldn't do it because he didn't get points.
He'll save that promotion from getting cut from WBD. And maybe there's something he can work with the network in order to get some sort of stake, or maybe doing something with that and then getting bare knuckle fighting championship on one of the Turner networks or HBO Max. I'm just trying to think of a way where
he's not buying. He's not buying bare knuckle. He attempted to. He was rebuffed.
Well, now
it was an example of something he tried
to beat everybody.
Yeah, yeah, he probably will do. I mean,
no, he's not. He trips
punches.
over. He's a clod. I've been in the ring with him.
Okay. That is a future episode. I'm going to write that down. I'm trying to think. What's the end game for him? As you say, he's nearly 80. What can he do? Is he just going to okay, does he want to be in business, or does he want to be a visible presence on television or wherever it is? Does he want to be back in the public?
Well, no matter what he does, if he buys a company or he represents it or he has anything to do with a company, he will have a visible presence. Even if he's not on camera, there's going to be still people saying Vince McMahon did this and now he needs to pay for it, or there's an ongoing lawsuit. Are the networks going to want to touch it? I still say, too, at the same time, that other than the AEW, which is a pipe dream, and I said it's strictly theoretical, he still has, I believe, a strong connection to the Saudis. But they may take over WWE or buy it, say in the next 30 years for the 2020 or the 2030 thing that they're trying to do. What's he going to? He's going to be 85. If it goes that way, if they hold on to it a few more years, the sale happens, then it takes about a year to finalize. 85-year-old Vince McMahon, I know he said he's never going to die, but I mean, come on.
Hey, his mother gave it a good go. She was over 100.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think if we sell this show in 2030, it's like, what do you think about the new Saudi Arabia Wrestling Federation?
Hey, the one thing he could get involved with, but this is actually going to be Dana White, is Saudi Arabian's, he's called Turkey. I don't know what the rest of his name is. But he's getting into boxing. So you never know. There might be room for Vince to get involved in a promotion.
Here's an interesting question. We can go on forever about this. Do you think if Vince McMahon owned wrestling promotion in Japan, far enough away from the States, different culture, do you think that would be an interesting concept?
I think it'd be far stricter. Do you know what, right? A few years ago, Taka Michinoku was barred from wrestling for a year because it was found out he had an affair.
Oh, wow.
And he was barred from wrestling for a year.
Okay, I take that back.
Japanese won't play with that at all.
Vince is already banned. Hasn't even done it.
Yeah, he should be banned from like anywhere east of like Manchuria or something like that. But I doubt it.
I didn't know that. No, I take it back. Sorry about that. Wrong again. No.
No. Right, I'm going to stop here.
Okay,
so next on the agenda, back to AEW, and this is the Jon Moxley lawsuit that was disseminated, I guess, a couple of days ago. Jon Moxley is being sued by a man who did not work for AEW but worked on numerous AEW productions. He was one of the guys on the floor, I guess. Not hired by AEW, but once again, worked for numerous AEW shows. It was agreed prior to the show that the man, he's called Christopher Dispenza, would hand Moxley a screwdriver. And that's what happened. And then Jon Moxley, I guess, in the moment, shoved Christopher Dispenza. And this was in May 10th, 2023. So plaintiff was a business invitee of Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Michigan as a production team member for the event defendant AEW was putting on within the arena. Plaintiff was asked to hold a screwdriver. Basically, it's just everything I've just said. Here's some of the claims he made from that shove. Plaintiff sustained extensive injuries, and we'll B-roll this in so everybody can see, of this violent and unscripted assault, ultimately culminating in surgical procedures of cervical spine surgery, shoulder surgery, plus other serious injuries that necessitate significant medical treatment. Okay, I could go on and on and on. You at home have, as long as you're not listening on audio only, and Stevie has just watched this as well. Serious spinal injuries from that shove. What do you think?
No, just my thought. I mean, you can have your back. If his back was already 99% out, or there was a pre-existing condition, he didn't take a bump because he's not a worker. He just got shoved, more like pie-faced, down and kind of rolled on like the right side of his hip and back and kind of ribs and maybe that shoulder. I'm not sure, man. We're in 2025, by the way. The thing that made me pop was after we talked about the Vince and TKO bean counters, ads, Slim Jim tables. This took place at the Little Caesars Arena. Pizza. So, but he wants money for this. So I don't know, man. This is the thing about like in 2025, putting your hands on a fan on the other side of the barrier is something. But now you need to be careful. Even running, there was a thing I saw, Bronson Reed did something and there was a security guard. It was on social media or something shared on YouTube. And he bumped into him, and the guy laughed it off. He was a big dude. But that dude could have sued for whiplash. I mean, right now, I guess it needs to be as watered down as possible. We got the ATV Karen at WrestleMania with Austin. Who knows what's going on with that? But now you have to stay as far away from anybody inside and outside the barrier. It's a very dangerous game because according to this, with the money this guy wants, which, by the way, for all the surgeries and medical stuff, I want to know what hospital he went to because I had to pay much, much more just for a spine infection for what he wants from, what was it, 25 grand?
Oh, I'm not even sure he's mentioned a number, or at least I didn't read a number in this. Oh, I'm sorry. No, damage to exceed $25,000. So I don't think
it's
there's
going to
any
be over
limits.
25 grand. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, but exceeding 25 grand, I can tell you right now, a couple of my ER visits for a couple of days were in the 30,000s. So if he had surgery and all this other stuff and everything, this is definitely something, unless they're just lowballing, putting the 25, I'm speculating. Are they lowballing with the minimum of 25,000? Because this is going to settle. I don't think this is going to go court. This is going to be a money payout or maybe medical bills, and that's going to be the end of it. You never know. This is the thing about pro wrestling, too. I'll back it up for a second based on my initial reaction. Real violence, real injuries, anything that really hurts somebody always looks less than a big bump, a big spot, thrown over the top rope, the larger-than-life violence of wrestling. So I'm not doubting this guy got hurt, but I don't know about, just by watching those few seconds, all those injuries, that just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I'm doubting this guy got hurt. I mean, obviously, you played a doctor on TV. I didn't even do that. We can't actually say with any certainty how injured, if at all, this person is. That being said, did you notice the date I read initially of when this incident happened?
Well,
May 10th, 2023. This was filed over 2 years later.
On May 30th, 2025.
Mm-hmm. So, I find that interesting, very much so, that he would file this claim over 2 years later. Now, it's been said, now this is one thing that I will believe Dave Meltzer on because he's got a direct line to Tony Khan. This fella, allegedly, from the AEW camp, has said that Christopher Dispenza never filed a complaint with AEW or filed any medical expenses or complained about being injured to anyone in the company that reached Tony or any of the higher-ups, I guess. So they were sort of saying that they were taken aback with this claim as well. Once again, I'm going to go further on down in this compensation sought and reasons why. And keep in mind that this was like a shove, and it wasn't a particularly violent one. He just rolled onto his side. And he was, once again, I just have to say, claiming cervical spine surgery, shoulder surgery, and other serious injuries that necessitate significant medical treatment. So once again, defendant Moxley's actions did plaintiff harm, the extent of which is still unknown after 2 years, as plaintiff continues to have physical issues related to the incident. It also, I need to mention, before we get to the compensation sought, the past disciplinary offences by defendant Moxley include a documented history of unpredictability as well as a lack of control by defendant AEW, all of which were known or should have been known to defendant AEW at the time of this assault. Have you ever heard of one single behavioural infraction Jon Moxley has ever made?
No, he's only done damage to his own body. That's it. Nobody, I haven't heard about him having a problem or being a discipline problem, or the unpredictability is the gimmick. Is he watching Dean Ambrose, Matt, the lunatic fringe? Is he going off of the gimmick? There's one more point I don't think you pointed out. He worked shows after this.
He did. We're not talking about Jon Moxley. We're talking about whatever.
No, I'm talking about the guy who's suing. Yeah.
The guy who's suing actually worked shows after this, despite the fact of allegedly having extensive spinal issues. Now, compensation sought, medical expenses, disability, permanent and serious disfigurement of what? Anyway, wage loss and lost earnings capacity, pain and suffering, exemplary damages for mental and emotional anxiety and humiliation and or indignity. Now, I just want to say this. No one on earth ever remembered that shove. No one remembered it at all. The only reason this is coming up again is because this Christopher Dispenza fella is suing, and therefore tons of people have gone back and watched it to figure out what it was. So therefore, humiliation... Well, if it's so humiliating, why are you suing in the first place to bring light to this shove in the first place? Anyway, there's more. This is G on the list. Diminution in business, if I pronounced that right, reputation and opportunities. So apparently it's stifled other opportunities. Other economic and non-economic damages not yet known, so maybe metaphysical. And all other damages available under Michigan law, wherefore plaintiff demands judgment against defendants in an amount to be determined by the jury together with costs, interest and such other relief as this court, deems, I suppose. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, as Vince McMahon would say, unbelievable. But I would say this, I've been searching for videos for the MetaQuest 3 and 3S to compare it, and I've seen worse falls in VR fails than this guy's fall. You know, I've seen rougher falls, hit heads on coffee tables and knocking TVs over and just falling off the porch. You know, like I said, real violence and real stuff. But my question would be, were there any pre-existing conditions? Because if this guy's working that type of work, it's manual labor, correct? If he's a grip or sets up the box press or the production area or something, he looked like somebody had a headset and he was holding cables, right? Yeah. Or he was doing something on the outside. This was the lightest I've ever seen Jon Moxley.
Yeah. But keep in mind, he worked shows afterwards. Yeah, and if he was so injured, why didn't he tell the company?
Well, here's the thing, too. Pain and suffering, mental, emotional distress, whatever you want to call it. He had to have bumped into Moxley after this. The wrestlers, if I saw that guy, first of all, after the whole thing, I bet you Moxley thanked him. Hey, thank you for that. Are you okay? Whatever. That's normally a common courtesy. Then what wrestlers do the next time they see that person, hey, man, thank you again for last week. Hey, you okay? Because this guy worked shows afterwards. Mm-hmm. So he had to bump into him, or he had plenty of opportunity, like you said, to go to the lawyer, which infamously she's dealt with these cases before.
Yeah, Mega Perec at the time, yeah.
Yeah. Or gone directly to Tony Khan, or even went to Chris Daniels, talent relations, right? And said, hey, one of your guys hurt me. So I don't understand, and I don't understand. My only thought is that once the court and a judge or a jury or all the above see this footage, they're going to have the same reaction we do. But here's the problem for AEW and Jon Moxley. You don't want it to go to court. It's going to get super expensive. You're better off, even if you pay this dude $50,000 to go away, and then he'll probably sue because they're not giving him any work after the fact. Because that's what's going to happen too. Like, well, why can't it come back to work after I sued the company for $50,000 or more? Now, is this a lawsuit with both? Or is a lawsuit just for Moxley or just for AEW?
Oh, I figure they'll just get everybody involved as much as they can and then whittle it down after the fact. There's a couple other things that make me think this is just a bit suspect, apart from obviously what we saw. It should also be mentioned that if it wasn't pre-agreed and it was someone who wasn't a worker, obviously Moxley shouldn't have touched him. You don't know if... I mean, that really does need to be said.
1,000% agree. Do not touch anybody who's not a worker.
Here's another thing.
Sorry to cut you off.
No. Yeah, no, please.
No, I just mean that goes wrestling bubble. That's what I think of right away. Hey, you know what would be cool? Hey, brother, this would be great. Oh, this is going to get people talking or whatever. That's when you get yourself into trouble. Putting a spike in your own bat is one thing, or spike in your own bat. Putting a spike back in your, good Lord, that's a tongue twister. A spike bat into your back. See, dance to get a little dance along Stevie avatar there to sing along. That's one thing. But when you turn around and you think everybody has the same goofy mindset the pro wrestlers have, this is going to be good and I'm going to just shove you for effect. And by the way, like you said, this dude could lose tens of thousands of dollars. AEW could also lose a bunch of money based on the fact of something nobody even remembers until this lawsuit surfaced.
There's a couple of things. Once again, he worked after the shove occurred, supposedly, anyway. He waited over 2 years to bring the lawsuit forth, which we know. He allegedly never went to Tony Khan or AEW representatives to ask for medical bills to be covered or anything else. The lawsuit refers to Jonathan Good as Jon Moxley. Why is he using his gimmick name throughout? That's a Wikipedia search at the best.
Well, then Jon Moxley can file for bankruptcy and Jonathan Good is all good to go.
It's nuts that. It's nuts.
Well, that just proves all the other stuff that, in my opinion, as a doctor, not a lawyer, as a doctor on TV, that you're connecting the gimmick to trying to make it legitimate. Now, here's the trick. Wrestlers are big phonies. We're not tough guys. We're P-words. We're this and that. We're not real athletes. We're not real fighters. Oh, the second you want to fight a wrestler and the wrestler beats your ass, we're lethal weapons. You can't have it both. Well, they can have it both ways because they do. That's exactly what happens in court. Big Show fought a guy. Like, remember Big Show had gotten arrested and the guy sued him and there was an incident in like a hotel lobby or something. No. The guy was really on Big Show and I think disrespected him and something happened and it ended up early on in his, it might have been towards the end of WCW or the very beginning of his WWF career. And that got settled and everything. But here we go. Oh, you guys are just big sissies. You're peas or whatever. And then the fact that turns out that we're not. Oh my God, this guy's a lethal weapon. He's 7'4". He's 400 pounds. You looking it up?
Yeah, but it's brought up something that wasn't that, which I'm not going to say.
Okay. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah. And once more claims Jon Moxley has numerous documented cases of disciplinary issues, of which none are named in the lawsuit and none have ever been made public, which brings into scrutiny whether any of these alleged disciplinary issues have actually happened, or if this is just all a character thing.
I hate to break this apart into a million pieces, but so you're not aware enough to say, I can go to management, Tony Khan, legal, human resources, or whatever it is, or even talent relations, but you have your ear to the ground enough to know that they're disciplining Jon Moxley.
There you go. Anyway, we would make your own minds up, fellas and ladies and gentlemen.
Allegedly.
No, Aha. Damn, how's your cervical spine?
Oh, I got to sue. I'm suing myself.
Yeah, you need to sue the soundproofers.
Sue everybody, like the Jerky Boys said. It's probably before your time.
Apparently, so I've never heard of him. Right. Okay, so next on the agenda, this is the thing that I think most people want to hear you go through and give your opinion on, and this is Liv Morgan versus Kairi Sane from WWE Raw on Netflix this past Monday. It's the very first move of the match, and Liv Morgan gets injured. So, Stevie, this is going to be one of the more difficult ones. Over to you. What went wrong?
Well, thank you, James. I've watched this a few times. We're going to go through it again, but like you said, I think we can chalk it up, spoiler, to being just a freak thing that can always happen every single time you're involved in any kind of physical activity as far as working out, being in the ring, or anything else. So let's take a look at this. And yeah, right off the bat, right there. Yeah, she gets right to the rope. So I'm going to go right to the replay here. She's holding her shoulder. Now, with her hair here, I can't really see if it's kind of pushed forward or dislocated forward or something. It looks like it's the side delt or the front delt or both. Well, obviously the rotator cuff in that joint that's been dislocated. Let's go to the slow motion here. Dude, I got nothing on that. See, that's what I mean? Here's the thing. She did everything right. She's trying to break her fall she's taking a face bump. And what you do for a face bump is obviously more times than not, unless you're Bubba Ray Dudley, who takes probably the best face bumps in the history of the business, where it probably knocks himself silly, you put these hands in front of you. And when you have long hair, you can mask that your face is not hitting the mat. Now, when I looked at this closely, I'm looking for, is there anything in this mat, like a board that's loose where it just kind of shifted or anything like that? There's nothing. This mat is taut. There's no loose points. I can't see a board popping up. I can't see anything where she puts her hand down here where it looks like, all I can think of is this. And she's probably done this a million times. When your elbow hits down like this, could that be the part that pops the shoulder out? So I don't know the exact diagnosis. I saw in the show notes, she needs surgery. So this thing is definitely, now this is on the other end. This is connected to that Jon Moxley lawsuit where I said real violence, real injuries are never going to look as impressive nor larger than life than what we're watching right here. This is so innocuous and just the same bump she's done a million times. But I can tell you this, the second she took it, she went right to the ropes. I'm not even saying sell, I'm saying ropes and not selling off and not begging off, like over the top. It's literally, I grab my shoulder, I'm selling, that's it. So people knew something was wrong right away. I just don't. Carrie didn't do anything wrong. Liv didn't do anything wrong. It's literally just. And the weird thing is, like, the first thing you think of as a worker, being you watching a bunch of this stuff, or even the fans, what do you think once you see a replay? It's a work. Why are they replaying it? Usually on a real injury, they're just cutting, they're going to the back, they're sending somebody down. In a multi-person match, they're going to rely on the remaining people to finish the match. What was the injury? What was the injury not too long ago where the girl slid out and they continued the match?
Oh, Zoe Stark.
Zoe Stark.
Also featuring Kairi Sane.
Good Lord. This girl has really got a feel. She just came back. That was her first match. This is technically like her second or third match, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so Kairi Sane was the one who, there was a bit of a timing issue where she either didn't turn around quick enough or Zoe Stark jumped off the ropes a bit too quickly, but there was a timing snafu.
You shouldn't be running and then meeting, especially your first match back. You should just stand there. But then again, Dakota Kai got knocked out standing there waiting for the drop kick. So maybe she was just trying to run into it to resist the drop kick. Now, I'm pointing this out right here because this is how I would face bump or take DDTs. She's putting her knee in front. She's putting both her forearms in front. She's doing everything she can to protect her face, her nose, her neck, things like that. So she's done everything right. It's actually a cool takedown here too, if you think about it, kind of like the stretch muffler, except you're not picking them up. You're doing like a fireman's carry face bump thing down to here. It emphasizes the fact that this is a very dangerous thing. The don't try this at home thing is not just for a PSA. It's not just for, we have to do it legally because what was the Lionel Tate thing where the kid did something to his brother, ended up killing him. That's all part of it, but it really is because you can get hurt on the simplest. You could run the ropes, do your tackle, drop down, hip toss, roll your ankle, break your ankle, be out for 6 months. This is not ballet. It is not supposed to be something that is, they make it look easy, but this shows that this is not easy to do. And you can get seriously hurt. And creatively, this is where like you start to look at things and it might, right now, like afterwards, it might not be the right time to bring it up. But right now, this might be not such a terrible thing. Hopefully she recovers, the shoulder fully heals. But creatively, Liv can come back and be fresh again. She's been all over TV for months, if not years. And now the Judgment Day stuff's starting to get a little bit stale, maybe a lot stale to some people. So her going away for a while and coming back could actually help her career. But this isn't the way I would want anyone to do it. But it's a freak accident. Nothing went wrong. Nobody did anything wrong. And thank God, you know what? The one thing I was holding my breath when I watched this, please don't finish the match. Please don't get back in there. Because you know what a worker thinks? Well, Carrie's working my left arm or my leg. I can still work. I can just roll around. Because every time she bumps, it's going to pop. Every time she bumps, a tendon, ligament, or even a muscle could tear. So good on them for just ending the match. And that's something about current wrestling that I'm glad they trend in that direction. Because in my era and the eras before, you're hurt anyway. Finish the match.
Mike Johnson from PW Insider said that Liv Morgan's separated shoulder will require surgery, and they've learned it from multiple sources that she's going to be missing a decent amount of time. I've heard 4 to 6 months potentially. Because with shoulder separations, I guess it very much depends on what kind of separation it is, or if it happens frequently, if you can pop it back in or not. But essentially, it's the worst kind of injury of that. Thankfully, I've never dislocated anything. Have you dislocated anything, and how does it feel compared to a bone break or a ligament tear?
Oh, I've dislocated lots of body parts, including my shoulder, but I feel like this is a little bit worse than that, or a lot worse. If it requires surgery, it's a torn rotator cuff or a torn something in the shoulder. If you just separate your shoulder and it gets put back in, there's obviously going to be discomfort, pain, healing time. Sometimes could take longer, just like with a sprained ankle, could take longer than a broken ankle to heal because there's all these different sorts of trauma to the tendons, ligaments, and muscles rather than just a regular bone break, unless you have a compound fracture, multiple parts of the foot or the ankle, things like that. That's why a torn Achilles tendon is like a year to 2 years for football players, as opposed to like breaking a leg is like 6 to 8 weeks sometimes. I think she tore a rotator cuff or something worse than that. Because if you need surgery and it's going to be worst case scenario, that's the way it's described, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm guessing torn rotator cuff.
It seems that separated shoulders and freak injuries happen fairly often, and we're not even talking about, you accidentally put your arm out and you land the wrong way. I mean, there was Randy Orton famously when he was doing the RKO thing and he punched the mat or the microphone.
Again, I lost. Yeah.
And Sami Zayn, he punched the air and dislocated his shoulder.
Is that when he came out to wrestle Cena on his debut match on Raw?
Is that the one?
He got injured during that match. He got injured during that match.
Yeah, I remember it was a while ago. Yeah.
Was it when he hit the steps or something with his hand?
No, I thought he did that or something, or cheered. And
he definitely got hurt in that Cena match. It was his first match on Raw, and he was just, it's a freak thing. I know some people hit the ring steps and somebody like broke a couple of their fingers hitting the ring. That's the one where like her, Liv and Carrie will hopefully, after it's all said and done, and it's a couple of years down the road, we'll probably watch that back and laugh about it. Like, this is so silly. I've done this a million times. The kind of like what they're doing in WWE now, where you rewatch the match with the opponent or an injury or stuff like that.
Well, Carrie Sane's not laughing at the moment. She's feeling rather sorry for herself as being sort of involved in all these injuries as of recent. The quote she posted on social media recently Was one of the most painful things for me is when a match is decided not by wrestling but because of an injury. I always step into the ring with deep respect for my opponent, and I train hard every day to give the audience something they can truly enjoy. Even if it was never intentional, knowing that someone was hurt in a match with me is something I carry deeply. It breaks my heart. I hope with all my heart for a full and speedy recovery. I will continue to give my all, hoping to bring excitement, not pain, to the ring.
Well, that's a way to still keep it in kayfabe, but say, I don't want my opponent to be hurt like that. Yeah, I mean, she's never going to be a heel bringing excitement and not pain to the ring, but she's tough. I hate to laugh about it. You laugh about it because you just don't know what to do. I don't know how it happened. And if they're saying surgery for her, like I said, that just denotes too, how I've said it before. Are these people wrestling and traveling way too much? And is their bodies breaking down to a point where little things like this are going to injure them? Like, she's been on everything for a long time. I'm sure she's carrying injuries. So maybe it's a good time for her to heal up, come back with a fresh character, and maybe come back as a babyface.
Yeah, and ironically, Liv Morgan ended up getting the biggest push of her career because Rhea Ripley ended up being injured, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's right. The concussion where she jumped her in the back, right?
Yeah. And then she ended up with a world title run, a Raw world title run, and then sort of made her, and then Rhea Ripley came back more popular. So I think WWE, especially in the last couple of years, if not got down to a science, Rhea Ripley, CM Punk, there are others as well who've been injured, and they've made it into a positive rather than a negative. So I think they'll probably do that with Liv as well, as one of the more prominent members of that roster.
Now, let me ask you a question about that, because we're weighing creativity, storylines, people being over with the bean counters.
Mm-hmm.
So they released R-Truth. He was fine. He wasn't injured. He just came off a really great match, Saturday night's main event against Cena, carried his weight in that match. Do you think they're going to start? Because it was always a very taboo thing, except for one case that I can remember. They would never release anybody when they were injured. Never do it. Do you think there's a chance that they could do that from this point on? If she doesn't, say it takes a year or 18 months and they're like, it's taken too long, we have to release you, or we're going to cut your contract down.
I'm trying to think of the person who they released when they were injured.
Test.
Ah.
I heard it was Test. That was based on second information.
Trying to think if they've done that with anyone else.
They probably did, but maybe now, maybe developmental and not Test. But usually they'll do that. And obviously, if you get injured, like if she signed a deal and she's out for a year, now her contract gets extended for a year for the injury time, correct?
Yeah. So, one more video watch along, what went wrong, is the Hurt Syndicate. Jim Cornette has weighed in on this as well. So on AEW, I think Dynamite. So I think they've been doing like a couple of 4-hour specials the last couple of weeks. I've been away. I didn't watch very much wrestling. It was a double show, so I understand anyway. Anyway, the Hurt Syndicate. So Bobby Lashley, Benjamin Shelton, in honor of Hulk Hogan calling him that, and MJF wrestled Jet Speed, Kevin Knight, Mascara Dorada, and Speedball Mike Bailey. There was a portion of the match that was clearly planned way in advance and did not get executed well whatsoever, quite frankly. So AEW apologists were blaming Shelton Benjamin, and someone with an actual valuable opinion, Jim Cornette, thought differently. We'll talk about Jim Cornette's response afterwards, but over to you, Stevie. What went wrong?
Well, thank you, James. And I have not watched this, so I'm going to react to it as it goes along. Just right off the bat, my spidey sense on blaming Shelton Benjamin for this is I'm going to have a similar reaction to probably Cornette. I got to stop that. You look at him. You see that? No, him. Go after him.
It's like No Mercy. You have to press like C left to like change your direction.
It is that, yeah. Oh, which way? I always get, especially during the Royal Rumble, you're like, I'm beating him up. Why am I going after my partner?
What was that meant to be?
Well, okay, that's a great question. I would say this. Now, watching this particular part right here, flips upside down. Now, what I can think of is this person's head's down. They're not ready. That's where it starts to go a little bit wrong. Sheldon turns around. I think when he turned around, this person was supposed to hit him with the knee, the blind side knee there, but it didn't come off that way. So when he did this guy wasn't ready. This is just my guess. I'm thinking flip over. Sheldon kind of looks over this way to see, is he ready? Then I think the knee was supposed to start coming right there and jack him up there. But Mike Bailey was like, he's over there. That's the guy that's going to give you the knee. Then he wanted to give the knee. But it looked like, now tell me what you think. I thought he was going for a drop kick, and then he stopped in midair and then came back down. Did you see that?
I thought he was going for like some sort of like jumping DDT kind of thing. Like he was waiting for Sheldon to catch him.
No, I thought he was going for, at first, a knee into the jaw. But it ended up with a double drop kick. Do you see what I mean? Like, do you think Mike Bailey was out of position? That when Sheldon flipped Mike Bailey over, Mike Bailey was in position, but this guy was supposed to be right here, and they're supposed to double drop kick Sheldon, Benjamin Sheldon.
Let's have a look at Mike Bailey then. So what's he doing when the other two are messing up whatever that jumping thing was?
Oh, he's right there. He's the one who told Sheldon to look at him. Look at him.
So why is Mike not running to, if it's going to be like a double drop kick or something, why is Mike not running towards at the same time?
I think it's a possible audible on the fly, which most people can't do. And Sheldon's waiting for a double drop kick. So when he jumps up, Sheldon's stepping in like he should to take a knee, take a drop kick, take something. But then this guy on this, he's got his knee up. Sheldon's bracing for a drop kick. Look at the shoulder. See what I mean? Hand up, shoulder kind of turned to bump like that. That's my guess, that he was supposed to, and then, yeah, see, Sheldon thought a drop kick was coming or a knee where he could bump. It didn't come, but Sheldon kind of half bumped, kind of reacting to it, and then he tug him. Were you making tags?
It's a 6-man, so if it's a trios thing, I guess just anyone could be in the ring at any time, as the referee impotently stands in the corner watching on.
And I don't think Sheldon knew exactly where he was, because see how he kind of roll bumped to go out? No, I think after this flip, there was either going to be a jumping knee from the side by this guy, or they were supposed to be in position for a double drop kick, but his head was down. See what I mean? And Mike Bailey and Sheldon already turned, and now you have, instead of him here, he's over here. But I dare say if he ran fast enough, Sheldon's standing there waiting, they do a camera cut, it doesn't look like he was waiting forever for a double drop kick. So that's what I think. It's not the worst AEW botch ever, it's just whatever it is.
I just
tag.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have to like spend 10 like replays working out what they were going for, then maybe they overthought themselves. I don't think it's Shelton's problem at all. It's not his fault.
Oh, I agree with that. I think what did the people say about Sheldon? How's this Sheldon's fault and not their fault?
Oh, AEW apology. I mean, WWE's got the same types of, maniacs. But AEW, they can't do any wrong, and because Shelton Benjamin came from WWE, therefore he must be at fault. That kind of thing. Anyway, Jim Cornette said the following. Another reason why AEW's indie-level talent will never improve their in-ring game. Their fans keep telling them that they're all good, and the occasional real pros that wander in are making the mistakes. Hong Kong Phooey, and that's Mike Bailey, and Pal need to stick to basics until they can get that stuff right.
My favorite Jim Cornette thing is, what is it? Pockets.
Oh, Orange Cassidy,
calls them pockets. And who's he called? Jon Moxley, the plumber.
Yeah, Plumber Moxley, yeah.
He's right. What is this? I mean, we're in a bizarre world. It really is a clown world where the people that have less experience are the ones that are perfect. The ones that have had massive amounts of experience, more than both of those guys put together. Sheldon has more experience in big match situations, matches every single night, and also not hurting people and not botching. If you're going to call a guy, if I'm going to wrestle a guy and I'm going to say, there's absolutely going to be everything fluid with no botches, Sheldon's picture would be in that dictionary. Bobby Lashley, too. Sometimes Bobby, because he's so big, is not going to take in a standard like back bump or whatever. It's going to just kind of be staggered. But Sheldon, my God, and Sheldon was waiting for it. Sheldon's waiting for you two to do something. And then you do something, but then you don't do it. You kind of pull back from it. But Sheldon's anticipating that when you take a drop kick, like the Zoe Stark thing on Dakota Kai, she waited until she got kicked as hard as possible to take a bump. Sheldon is already doing this. That's what I was showing on the thing. He's like parrying. What's the...
Yeah, no, parrying. Yeah.
Parrying.
He's basically rolling with the punches, yeah.
Exactly. So that's what he's doing. That's why I think it was going to be a drop kick, because with a knee, he's leaning the chin in to take it up here. You see what I mean? This is a drop kick. So he was thinking that guy in the corner, in my opinion, was the one out of position, and they were supposed to do a double drop kick. And then when Mike Bailey looks right at Sheldon and goes, look at him. That's Sheldon's fault? No, not in a million years. I don't know exactly what they were trying to do, but I know for a fact Sheldon was exactly where he was supposed to be, and it was 100% their fault, not his. And you're right. We're in a world where indie level talent is given the benefit of the doubt, and the people who have been tested night in and night out are the ones that are goofy and making mistakes.
You know what it is? It's like, well, you can do more flips, therefore you're the better worker. That is the mentality of some people.
That's exactly right. I mean, the flip came off very well. How's that, AEW fans?
Let's move on back to WWE now. Once again, I did a horrible job of formatting this script. We're all over the place. But, I was in a rush. Right. But in fairness, two of these things actually link together, so that's why I put them together. Jey Uso loses the WWE World Heavyweight title. This isn't going to be quite about Jey Uso, more about Rikishi. Please tell me you saw this. I
did. I never knew the name of the podcast until I just read the show notes.
I joked about that.
Is that the real name?
No,
oh, geez. Oh, okay.
I stole the joke from someone else. It made me laugh.
You gotta tell her. I don't want to spoil it.
Okay.
Tell everybody what you called the podcast.
Jey Uso's reign as WWE World Heavyweight Champion came to a rather unceremonious end after 51 days when he ends up passing out to Gunther's Sleeper, the same move that saw Jey win the title at WrestleMania 41. Rikishi on the Stinky Face podcast. Which, in fairness, isn't actually I don't know what it's called. Let's just call it that. Sat there and cried, well, not literally, but he might as well have done, cried about the absolute injustice his son suffered at losing the World Heavyweight title to Gunther. Okay, are we talking about Jey first, or should we talk about Rikishi first here?
Well, let's talk about Rikishi, because I have my biased opinion about Jey Uso, and I believe in that guy as a star. But I also have a theory as to why this happened, and you're probably right there with me. But let's address the Rikishi reaction first. And by the way, for people that don't know, Rikishi is Jey Uso's father. Jimmy and Jey are twins. He's their father. This is not a podcast host. This is not a show host. This is not a fellow worker reacting. This is a protective father protecting his son. So let's move forward with that in mind.
Okay, I'm not going to give you a ton of quotes here, but it just, as a quote said, "What is it against my boy?" He said. Then he moans that WWE, would they have done it to Randy Orton? I've got facts here, we'll talk about them in a minute. Would they have done this to John Cena? Basically, he's saying that WWE is not treating Jey with enough respect, and the fact that, in at least Rikishi's opinion, I guess, he's more over than basically anyone else on the roster, and he should be treated as such, and he should have been given a longer world title reign, and rather it was... We'll talk about it, obviously, in the next segment, and most people will know why Jey Uso lost. It's all become apparent now. But, I mean, do you at least agree with this sentiment that Jey Uso has been done dirty, basically, by the creative of WWE?
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the quotes by Rikishi on the Stinky Face podcast, according to you. That's the name.
That will always make me happy now.
That's why I want to make you laugh. Make you forget about that rental car in the mountain. Aha. So...
Patreon story, everybody.
I do believe they did Jey dirty, because this is the trap. I talked about this many times before, even my personal experience of not wanting to win the Extreme Rising title and wanting Luke Hawx to win it, because a babyface champion is a dangerous proposition. It's a slippery slope, and it gets stale real quick. Jey didn't get stale. That's the point of contention. He was just ramping up in a way.
I disagree with that. I was thinking...
Well, you know why? Because the way they set it up, they made Jey way too vulnerable and self-doubting before he even won the title. Gunther, I would argue, you're going to talk about Gunther and Goldberg in a couple minutes. Nobody got over in this whole thing. And nobody's going to be over in the end. Think about it. So Jey, the chase of the world title, the merch seller, standing out on his own, being a tag team wrestler and being part of a group. I remember during the COVID era, and I watched Jey and I go, that dude's going to be a star. The way he cuts promos, the way he has his own natural pacing and rhythm in promos, much like Punk. Conversational, but with a little bit of wrestling thrown in. Jey's really, really great at that. And Jey did carry that babyface chasing the champion role to perfection, except for the self-doubt and the vulnerability. Take that out. I believe that's where the marks in the office and on the creative team said, well, I mean, he doubted himself and he didn't think he could win the title. They start to think it's real. And also the shiny new part-time toy comes in, and we got to get the belt off Jey to put it on a heel to put it on the shiny new old toy. That's the way I look at it. So yeah, I think they did him dirty, but here's what I'm not sure of right now with the current era of WWE. Back in the day, if you came to defend somebody publicly, they will punish that person and they will punish you as well. I don't know if Rikishi's in a position where they bring him in and they humiliate him or do whatever, but they could cool his kid off real quick for a real long time. And he calls himself Main Event Jey Uso. You're already booked into a corner. And I believe Jey Uso is a main event talent. He carried himself so well in the bloodline and stood out. The stuff with Sami Zayn, everything that Jey has been given, he scored with. Even with the lackluster babyface push to WrestleMania, that match against Gunther told a great story, potentially stole part of the WrestleMania show. That's my opinion. And then he won it. And now it's like, oh, because in this day and age, I've said it how many times, James, people want to see you chase and win the title, but then they end up just wanting to see title changes in general. So your run as a babyface champion can be real lukewarm, if not cold. And I remind everybody, just like the beginning of my, tangent that I'm going on, Rikishi is not a fellow worker trying to stab another worker in the back. He's not in the locker room trying to figure out how he can squeeze himself into this. He's a father who basically is protecting one of his twin sons. And I have to give him credit for that. And he's right. The writers suck. Didn't he say the writers should be fired?
Yeah, basically.
They should be fired before Jey even won the title. Yeah. They suck.
I look at it from the other way, I guess, because I understand where he's coming from, but I don't think he's doing anybody any favours, because he's ranted quite a few times on Jey Uso not being protected as he should be, or in his opinion, or whatever else it might be. But I mean, you can use that argument for basically anybody on the roster. But here's the thing: he won the Royal Rumble, he won at WrestleMania, he got the big moment with the yeet, with the whole crowd going, that visual that will live for many, many years afterwards. And then he also specifically mentions Randy Orton and John Cena, WWE or Vince McMahon back in the day. Would you have done this to Randy Orton? 9 of his 14 title reigns were shorter than Jey Uso's at 51 days. Randy Orton's shortest reign was 25 minutes. And then John Cena, 9 of his reigns were shorter than Jey Uso's, and his shortest reign was 5 minutes. It's the worst argument in the world to compare to Randy Orton and John Cena, because I mean, ultimately, I guess the belt is a prop to advance a story. At the worst of times, I suppose. I mean, it should be far more than that. But I mean, Jey Uso didn't have one of the all-time worst title reigns of all time. Far from it.
Well, here's how I want to challenge you on that, because that era of Cena and Orton is in the same era as Triple H and Ric Flair in going for the record number of title wins.
Mm.
You see what I mean? We're in a different world now. We're in a different world of once you lose the title, you may never get it back. Very few people. You've seen him won it because he's from that era of trying to beat Ric Flair's record, which the WrestleMania match against Cody beat Flair's record, correct?
Mm-hmm.
17, 18 times.
Yeah.
We're not in that world anymore. He's from that era. So Jey and Rikishi, Jey didn't say anything because he's just going to keep his mouth shut. Rikishi is right in that you don't even know if Cody's ever going to get the belt back. Think about that. And Cody had a 2-year storyline, the story, 2 WrestleManias to try to win the title. They're not going to afford Jey the same grace nor patience. So Rikishi's right. Either have him have a long reign or no reign at all. That's what I would say. He would stay way more over doing that. And by the way, he just got beat. Why
Clean.
didn't you have... Yeah, here's the thing. The most famous one, this is the best analogy I can think of. Ultimate Warrior's the champion. Slaughter's got a hell of a heel run with the Iraqi sympathizer gimmick. They want to take the belt off of Warrior. They want Slaughter to win the belt. They have to figure out a way to distract Warrior to go off to another angle. It's the easiest book, and that's why the writers need to be fired. Triple H knows this. You didn't give Jey Uso somebody to say, I'm going to come back and win that world title, but I got to take care of you first. Jey just lost and said, well, I guess I'll get to the back of the line, guys.
Back in the tournament again.
Yeah, but that's the point. You need... Yeah, he's in the King of the Ring, right?
Yeah. Where they're all baby faces.
The King of the Ring means nothing now. It's not like what you did Austin and all these other people that won it, or Brett. Think about it. We're talking about times where these things meant something. Now it's hold on to that spot as long as you can, because then the office will be more inclined to go back to you for a second, third, fourth title reign, because you carried. That's why Cody may get it back, but we might be in the era of been there, done that. Here's the new toy. Then we get to the point of you sacrificed Jey Uso's babyface run as challenger and champion from a big WrestleMania win. You've already sacrificed Gunther's invincibility with the Sami Zayn loss at WrestleMania 40. Now another loss at WrestleMania 41, only to win it back so Goldberg can win it. So you're burying Gunther and making him look less than. I agree. Maybe too emotional and too close to the sun because Rikishi is his dad. But Rikishi's right. Fire the writers. They suck.
Now, for people who don't know, Jey Uso sort of rather surprisingly and unceremoniously lost the WWE World Heavyweight title to Gunther a week earlier. And this all became apparent because Gunther will now be defending said WWE World Heavyweight title against Bill Goldberg, who is finally returning to the ring after an absence of a good few years, actually, I think. I think the last match he had was with Roman Reigns. That was awful. I mean, it wasn't awful, but it was bad. I mean, it was
he hasn't had a passable match in years. Even the Taker match in Saudi Arabia. I mean, the best matches I've seen Goldberg had are against the Soda Machine and the Doors backstage.
You've got right. Tell people just in case I know you said it once ages ago. You've got to tell the story.
Okay, we've heard this story and we've seen Goldberg fired up, but I didn't really believe that it would go as far as it did until a house show. I'm talking about a house show, not a TV. I think, was it a TV? It wasn't a pay-per-view. It might have been a TV, but I swear it might have been a house show up in the Northeast. We're standing there, Dreamer and myself, and for some reason, I think Dreamer said, we need to stay by the Soda Machine because Goldberg's match is coming up. And I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, wacko, he's going to fight the Soda Machine and lose. So we're watching this, and Goldberg walks by, and that's why I think it was a house show, because it wasn't the security or any of that stuff. He walks by, he screams at the Soda Machine, goes nose to nose with it, backs up, kicks it, and then grabs it and starts headbutting the Soda Machine. Then as he walks away, Dreamer walks over and goes to the Soda Machine and chastises it for starting a fight with Bill Goldberg. Now, the reason why that means something is because Goldberg gave himself a concussion before he even went out to wrestle Undertaker in Saudi Arabia, only to charge him with a spear and hit his head against the ring post and knock himself out again. And in the end, almost literally break the Undertaker's neck on the worst jackhammer you'll ever see, but maybe one of the best brainbusters you'll ever see. Did I cover everything?
Yeah, why have we not watched that for Patreon? We need something to bump Tess with for another week.
I did it on the Wrestling Analysis channel that why did it go wrong? Because there's a lot of factors going into that match outside of Soda Machines and steel fireproof doors, and turnbuckle posts. Yeah. But this is what I mean. You just sacrificed Jey Uso's run. You're going to sacrifice another Gunther run for somebody that could literally be concussed before they even hit the ramp and the pyro goes off. He's older than me. He's 55 or 56, right?
He's 58.
God help us all.
When do you get a bus pass in America? Is it 55?
When do you get a what?
A bus pass.
Oh, you're talking about like a senior discount and everything?
Is it 55 or 60?
I'll check in with you in a year and a half. We'll see.
Yeah, let me know when you get the letter. Okay, right. So
I am an AARP, though. I am. American Association for Retired Persons.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I got the letter. I go, I'm signing up for this.
Oh, great.
A discount.
Do you get discounts for WWE shows?
No, actually, they charge you more because
yeah. I was going to say 10% off now. You don't have to pay $800.
I got to sit up there at where it was in Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium, the $1,000 nosebleed. There's no like a wheelchair accessible things or or spine infection accessible stuff.
No, you need to be like the fan man or something and get dropped in if it's like open air stadium. The fan man. Right, Goldberg, he's returning. Saturday night's main event in Atlanta, Georgia, July 12th. So they've given a good few weeks of build towards this, if nothing else. To go back again, maybe around October, I guess, WWE Bad Blood 2024. Gunther insulted Goldberg and his son Gage as they watched the show from the crowd and things nearly came to blows. And then fast forward 8 months later, and Goldberg is finally ready, I guess, to exact revenge on Gunther. He got a huge response from the fans when he came back out, I guess, because, it's his first time back in a good long time. And Goldberg's Goldberg. What did you think of it when he came down the ramp? I've got to say he looked old.
Well, the part that scared me the most, where I reacted, was when he said, "You're next." And I go, oh my God, there's going to be more matches after this.
I thought he was going to say you're last.
Well, he said you were last with Roman Reigns and somebody else, right? Remember you said that before. So now we're going to get, did he look old? Listen, Goldberg's in great shape for 58. He looks amazing. He's not as big as he once was, but that just happens over time. Can he probably work out? Does he have great cardio conditioning in the gym? No, no.
No, he's got terrible. He's been really injured. He's barely been able to work out. He had stem cell therapy recently, so what was bothering him most was his spine, and now that's, down the bottom of the list. But he's even said in interviews the last month or so that he's barely worked out at all as of recent. The thing he's managed to do, I guess, more than anything, and he said this was really difficult, was eat more so he could get back up to 270 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So he's really struggling even to make the size he is now, let alone be able to move around fluidly at that weight.
It scares me when you mentioned that hopefully that stem cell therapy worked. It worked great for Rey Mysterio. Nash looks great. Hopefully he can get the relief that he needs. But when I hear a 58-year-old man that's having trouble, and also he got sick a lot, that Undertaker match, he had COVID.
He did?
He was just getting over it. He hasn't had good luck with...
The Roman Reigns one, I'm sorry. That's the one he had COVID.
I'm sorry, the Roman Reigns one. Yeah. But he had something going on with Taker too before that. And then, of course, the soda machine got in his way and said, no, we got to finish off our angle first. But in all seriousness, you know what I think of when he says, my spine is giving me the most amount of trouble? For a guy that didn't bump that much, by the way, I think of Lex Luger, and I hate to even put it out there. The flight to Saudi, the bumps, basically the trauma to your body just traveling over. Well, he's going to Atlanta, but I'm sure he has more Saudi matches. But think about that. Even a cross-country flight, getting into the ring, is he training? Is he taking bumps? Because you have to figure out that sweet spot of, you can't just lift weights, ride the air bike, row, box, do MMA. You have to literally start taking bumps. The training could break him down before the actual match.
So this was always said to be his retirement match, but there was no retirement word actually said when he came out there. The commentators never said retirement, although he's always said that this would be his last match, but now it sounds like there may be more as well. Possibly, who knows? I mean, there could be a return match for the World Heavyweight title, which wouldn't be a bad thing, because we can get back to a couple of other things I've written down here, but how do you book this match now? So you've got, 3.5 weeks till Saturday night's main event, whenever it is. Who wins? Let's say it's his retirement match. Who wins?
We just did a watch along on Patreon not too long ago with Regal and Goldberg. And I feel like that is a direct analogy of what could happen with this match. Not purposely, not intentionally, but the style that Gunther has is a William Regal, Fit Finlay type of style with a lot more harder hits and chops. And think about this. Is Gunther going to have to water down his style to work a Goldberg style match? Because that's the only way this is going to work. If he takes him down to the mat and he starts kind of stretching him a little bit, it's going to resemble that match with Regal. It's going to look like he's a fish out of water, that he is completely in an element. He's going to look like he's drowning. And then when Gunther starts chopping him, people can think whatever they want. But if you don't have good cardio conditioning and Gunther is chopping you, it's knocking the wind out of you. And this dude does not have good conditioning as it is. So now is Gunther not going to chop Goldberg? Is Gunther going to be able to powerbomb Goldberg? Is Gunther going to be able to put a sleeper on Goldberg in a way that makes sense? Do you see what I mean? What is Gunther just going to work? Is Goldberg going to squash Gunther in 2 minutes and have a goal? Because the only way this thing works, especially if Goldberg's going over, is if you have that Goldberg squash match. And now what do we have? Now you just ruined Gunther again. Do you agree with that? If this thing goes longer than 5, it's going to be painful.
It won't. I don't think it will. Do you know what's a huge shame for me personally is that I was like one of the biggest Goldberg fans. The WWE run, we talked about this.
That was your murder hour type stuff. Just kill this guy.
I loved it. I loved it. It's what you wanted. And the more they did it, no one ever got sick of it. They used to put Goldberg on 2 shows of the same show in WCW quite a few times. No one ever got sick of Goldberg. He was a complete outlier as far as popularity. He was great. Loved Goldberg. WWE killed him off the first time. I thought WWE did a really good job when he returned for, that series of matches with Brock Lesnar and maybe Kevin Owens and, that couple of years.
Well, why did it work, though?
Because they were short.
They're short and he squashed both of them.
Exactly. Brock Lesnar, I think the second time he didn't. I think that was like 5 minutes. But, you did 6 moves in that 5 minutes and you sold them all and then you changed the title. But then he kept coming back and then there was Drew McIntyre and then there was Bobby Lashley and then I think maybe there was Bray Wyatt. There was a few random matches toward the end.
Bray Wyatt and Saudi, I think, right?
Did they?
For the title. He won the title from Bray, right? The Fiend.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah, I knew I had Bray Wyatt in my mind at some point. And it didn't work for me as well at that point, I guess, as a fan watching him, because I sort of, we got the return kind of thing, and now we're just rehashing the same thing, where Goldberg turns up after a year or 6 months away or whatever. He immediately gets a title match, which he either wins or doesn't win, and then he loses at the next one. And I thought, we've seen the best of Goldberg already, and now he's 4 years older, or whatever it is, or 3 years older, and he's looking older. He's looking a lot older. The way he walked, he was looking older.
I think I'm going to make a point, and then I'm going to make maybe a prediction, because I think there's a lot more at play here on a multi-generational level with NIL, with his kid Gage.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think the real play is here. But what I want to say, too, is TKO. I'm going to call it TKO from now on and not WWE, because this is their business plan. You have your workhorses that you pay almost the least amount of money out of anybody, or you pay them well, but you don't pay top dollar. Then Roman Reigns, The Rock, Bill Goldberg, and a few others, they make sporadic appearances in cycles of certain times, and they pay them big money. It's very much run like an indie promotion. You have your people that are there for every indie promoting, every indie show, the workhorses that work every match, do the storylines, carry the show. Then you bring in the big name for the big shows.
It's run like UFC now, because John Jones hasn't been there in God knows how long. He's been heavyweight champion for 2 years without having a match. We're still waiting for Tom Aspinall. 2 years. And we were still waiting for the match with Tom Aspinall. And John Jones will get paid more than anybody else. That's the big marquee match. And all the workhorses who fight 3 times a year and do all the training and everything throughout the year as well. They get paid little in comparison.
So let's get to the point of the prediction. I kind of talked about it already. I think they're actively trying to get his son Gage to get into the system. Mm-hmm. So they have the NIL program. They have college athletes. Do you think it's going to be something where Gunther basically destroys Goldberg and Gage comes out and tries to make the save or tries to do whatever, and he gets a little bit of heat?
Yeah, if you want to get booed, who cares about Goldberg's son? Really?
Well, it's Atlanta, Georgia. They might care about him.
But then you've got to have... Okay, if it's his retirement match, does Goldberg lose? Because you can't... Because then how does he win the world heavyweight title?
But I think when he said, "You're next," that was a clue that he might be putting Gunther over, now that I think about it, because he needs another match after that.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think Goldberg might win, and then a return match. Because his T-shirt said Goldberg's last ride, but never mentioned anything in regards to actually being his retirement match.
Was that a picture of a soda machine on it?
No, it had something on it. It was like a
Dude,
Viz cartoon.
If we make Goldberg shirts for Shopify with soda machines on it, and him laying in front of the soda machine, knocked out.
Can we have like a machine like spearing him somehow? Or would that just not translate?
I have to think about it. If it had it, you know what? If somebody can draw it up kind of like the Schoolhouse Rock, where I'm just a Bill, but I'm just a soda machine that doesn't sell for Bill Goldberg. But then I haven't heard from Bill in a very long time. I believe I would hear from him if we released that T-shirt.
I bet you would as well. Just one more thing. Goldberg's looking really short. I say short, I mean, he's still a tall guy, but Gunther's billed at 6'4", so you can guarantee he's not over 6'4". He might be 6'3", but Goldberg was always a legitimate 6'3", or was at the time. He's looking 3 inches shorter now. I don't think that's... Once again, is it like the Hulk Hogan thing? He said he had spinal issues. Has he just lost that much height through injury?
He might have, but if we look back at the match I had with him, I was pretty much eye to eye with him, and I was 6'2", 6'3".
Well, there you go then. We'll have to find out why he's shorter now. if nothing else.
He's about the height of a soda machine. I'll never let that go. It's like the Stinky Face podcast for you. It never gets old.
If Goldberg, he's got a podcast as well. It's called In the Stinky Face. Just call every podcast the Stinky Face podcast.
It's called the Stiff Everyone podcast with Bill Goldberg.
So, Mariah May has now debuted in person in WWE NXT. And more to the point, she's got a name change. Blake Monroe. I don't know. Well, it doesn't matter what I think. Okay, she was former AEW Women's Champion. I think Mariah May had enough cachet in that name to keep that name. And it is a real name as well. Blake Monroe. What do you think of the name change in general?
I remember sitting in on some things and maybe hearing Vince talk about some stuff as I was eavesdropping, before he pulled the granny panties out of the suit jacket. I feel like the Mariah May could be a tongue twister and not roll off the tongue in their mind, creative thinking about it. Also, obviously, they want to own the intellectual property and they can't own her real name. Blake Monroe kind of sounds better to me, just on first glance. I was going to say, what was the other name that we were looking at? What was that AEW one? It was Speedball Mike Bailey. What was the other person's name?
Was it Jet Speed or something, was it?
No, there was the name you said, and I said, oh my God, that's like the new the goofy name or something. That's the new Dolph Ziggler. What was the name? It was some just a little bit ago.
Was it the Stinky Face podcast by any chance?
No, I just want you to bring that up again. I know.
Constantly, I will always bring that up for you.
So yeah, Blake Monroe, I think the Blake Monroe name fits a little bit better. Usually with WWE, it takes a little bit to kind of feel like Killer Cross to Karrion Kross, close, but
Ricky Starks, Ricky Saints kind of thing.
Yeah, but this Blake Monroe, now she has a clean slate. You know what I mean? And I feel like they might have done that. I don't know why they did this. They did it more for Ricky Starks because there was some drama surrounding that. So they don't want any kind of attention on AEW. This here might be the new old way they go. Like they have even Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens. You don't think of Kevin Steen anymore. You think Kevin Owens. So you got to give WWE credit that the machine can make you forget a former name and remember the new name as if it was always the name. I give them credit for that. Do you like it? You don't seem sold on it.
No, not really. I really like Mariah May as a name. I just thought it was a good name. And it is her. It was actually her first name and her middle name, I think. I can't remember what a real surname is. But anyway, you can really tell that WWE value her because they've got cartoons of her, cartoon renderings of her on her. I still call it a Titantron, on the video screens and the promos and everything. They really, really are looking at her as a prospect for the future, I guess. What do you think of the opening vignette as well as her, in-ring debut performance with the contract signing and all that kind of thing?
Now, here's a little bit of a theory based on my experience. WWE does have some faith in her to sign her and put her on TV. I give them that rather than kind of going through got to learn how to wrestle our way and go to the performance center, which she probably has to do anyway. This here, I believe, might be a Jeremy Borash, Jimmy Paradise, or somebody in production really also believes in her and wants to take that initiative to do that. Now, obviously, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Road Dogg, everybody having to do something with NXT will say, yeah, that's good. You can spend time on that. But I believe, based on my experience of production people wanting to give me a good Titantron, wanting to give me good cinematic lighting, they take a part in that. So there could be somebody in the office or in production that says, let's just create this little thing and see what happens, and somebody had the Now, my thing with the cartoon, remember Aleister Black had the cartoon vignettes?
Mm-hmm.
That was Jimmy Paradise and Jeremy Borash. So that's why I'm kind of saying maybe they gave him creative freedom to say, hey, see what you can do with this girl. Now, the promo and the contract signing and all that stuff she did on TV, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That was strictly Shawn Michaels, everybody in charge of NXT, including Triple H. They're giving her the ball. They're making her stand out. So I think it's a twofold confidence thing with production wanting to do right by her and the office saying, yeah, let's see what she has.
I know you didn't watch too much AEW in later years anyway. I know you watched more sort of in the early years before Mariah May was there, but Fatal Influence interrupts, says Monroe was the next flavour of the month, and then they attack her and put her through a table. All usual stuff, because it wasn't on main WWE, we don't know if, and there was a cloth on it, we don't know if Slim Jim was sponsoring that table, unfortunately.
Fatal Influence.
Mm-hmm. I nearly said Fatal Attraction.
Wait, but that's what they want you to do. But Fatal Influence is like, we want to kind of touch on that, but we want to make it like G or PG type. You know what I mean?
I'm surprised they kept Fatal in.
Yeah, it should be.
Boo-boo influence.
Inconvenient influence.
A
stinky face of influence.
Stinky influence. All right, this is nothing to do with it. Because I was told the story, and I know the story anyway, it's great. So Jim Ross is interviewing the Rock and Roll Express, and they're getting counted down live on TV. 5, 4, 3. And then, I can't remember if it was one of Rock and Roll or Jim Ross. One of them does the smelliest farting right beforehand, and then they can't. And the first thing Jim Ross says is, "Well, we've got a smelly situation here, boys. What do you think about it, Ricky?"
Oh my God! Of course,
brilliant.
Those are kind of ribs that aren't bad, but when you're putting the wink, wink, nudge, nudge stuff, you know,
it's just with a straight face and everything. Okay, do we need to talk about Mariah May more? I guess because we've not seen her wrestle in WWE. We don't know if she's going to make it to the top, I guess, and make it to the main roster. She probably will. She seems like she's going to get every opportunity to do so. But I also think that people were claiming that Tony Storm was the one who was very much carrying Mariah through their matches and feuds and stuff.
Well, we're going to find out in a hurry if she can really carry. Now, the NXT audience, that's the ultimate false positive. That's right up there with the AEW fans, correct? Yeah. They didn't even cheer, you know, when she's talking about, there's so many performers there that I can't wait to hop into bed with. But that didn't translate at all, because that was her character in AEW, that she was basically a lascivious lesbian, a very handsome one at that. But in NXT, for some reason, that just didn't go over at all. No one knew what she meant. No, and that's a weird part. I didn't know that about a character, but why are they changing her name and changing the entire presentation, but keeping a main part of her character in that? Do you think they're gonna try to go a little bit more adult themed?
I don't think so. I think they're going to nudge away from that and say, well, that didn't get a reaction. Why don't we mold her in the WWE way and come up with a new thing for Blake Monroe?
So is she going to be like Slumber Party Blake Monroe, and very innocent, and let's spin the bottle or whatever.
Works for me.
God, I'm showing every bit of my 53 years.
Hey, if nothing else, I just wanted to make
the bottle never stopped on me. By the way, bottle. I was very, very. So
just you and the rest of the BWO.
You son of a bitch. Oh, I gave you an aha for that.
Lucky Nova. All right. Yeah, also, just watching that little bit for NXT, should all wrestlers be banned from acting forever? Because I've got to turn the channel, man. When they go, hey, you're just the flavor of the month. And I was like, oh, it's terrible. There's like a few people who can act in wrestling, and none of them were in that ring.
Hey, you're a wrestler and you're a wrestler. You're both wrestlers.
Start
acting. Tony, that was a great analogy. Hey, what are you, smartass? People miss that. I don't know what at least they don't do the pre-tape-ease that I've hated forever. You, James Romero, and I, Stevie Richards, here on the Stevie Richards Show, are going to record the Stevie Richards Show. And then you, James, and myself, Stevie Richards, are going to talk into the Rode pod mic here. And you, James Romero, are going to host the show.
With my Shure.
Hey,
MV7?
Yeah. It's an MV7B. I think it's
no, it's not the B. It's the USB one.
I think it's.
Is it a plus?
Yes.
Oh, so. Do you know I've been. Normally we say this rhetoric for Patreon. I'm not going to upgrade this because I tried to upgrade it, and for some reason that the headphones died on it halfway through every show. I couldn't hear anything, so I had to reset my computer. And then, but I saw another one, and it had like the preamp built in, but it's like $400 wise, it'd be like over $500 per microphone. And I was thinking, man, if I got this studio going and then had about 4 of these microphones, and the A7S's, 3s, and I'm going to bankrupt myself.
I think the pod mic, dude, I've had the RE20, the RE27, the Shure SM7B. I've had just about every microphone in existence. This Rode Pod mic, these are under $200, USB and XLR. You buy 4 of those, you're done.
Mm.
And it's got 32-bit float over USB. So you control everybody's volume. Nobody can clip.
Yeah, but I don't know what a preamp is. I've never had to deal with one.
I will teach you, young apprentice.
Padawan. I'll be a Padawan.
Yeah.
I know you're a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Star Wars fan, if nothing else.
Come on over to the nerd side, everybody. Here we go.
I'm doing my best.
That wasn't the greatest Patreon preview. Oh my God, you guys talking about microphones? It's the most boring Patreon ever.
Yeah, but we do talk about microphones a lot on it. Right, okay, we're going to end on this then. Hulk Hogan. And this is sort of Hulk Hogan, but this is also Bubba the Love Sponge. Somehow they're intertwined still in 2025.
Can I ask you something before we start? I didn't read this. I just read the title. This isn't still from the Undertaker tombstone, is it? Ooh, he's still not reeling. Got me, brother. Call my wife and kids.
No, funnily enough, calling wife and kids actually does play into this. It's actually a serious story because Hulk Hogan is said to be experiencing some adverse reactions to a recent surgery, but doctors are expecting him to make a full recovery. Here's the thing. So, Bubba the Love Sponge, who I gather is still doing local radio somewhere in Florida, I guess. He was at some point more famous than he is now, I guess. He was also Hulk Hogan's best friend at one point until he, for some reason, allegedly leaked secret video recordings of Hulk Hogan boning his own wife while he sat in the office. Anyway, he released a story. In fact, let me just tell you what Eric Bischoff said first. In response to comments made by Bubba the Love Sponge on his radio show, Eric Bischoff released a statement on Wednesday to Derek Sabato stating that Hogan is doing well and expected to return late today. The reason that Eric had to say this was because Bubba the Love Sponge made comments saying on Wednesday morning, as we record that that Hulk Hogan was on his deathbed. Quote, "It's not good. I got some pretty reliable information last night that there are phone calls being made to various family members about getting to town to come and say your goodbyes," Bubba said on the show before clarifying he had not spoken to his source since Tuesday evening. Rumour has it, allegedly, Hogan is in the hospital, and I've heard people say that he might not make it. I think ultimately I'm bringing this up because I just find it really depressing that... Why would you even say this? I mean, the guy hates you. But yet you've got to make mention of it, and then apparently you're telling a story that may not have been true at all, or at least was true at one point and then isn't anymore. But apparently there was an issue with neck fusion surgery where the surgery went a bit off, and that he had to spend extra time either getting it corrected or remaining in hospital. But then Bubba says that he's on death's door, and that his family being informed.
Well, it has people talking about Bubba the Love Sponge. You just said earlier about the relevancy and the popularity. And yeah, I think he's still on local radio down here in Florida. I want to say this, though. This has been something, this back and neck and spinal issues with Hogan. I'm scared for Hogan, too, just like the Luger stuff. Hogan has had to have, back in TNA, I think he had that spinal kind of stimulator thing, like inserted into his spine that kind of like keeps the spine flat. I don't know. There was like an implant in his back that had an attachment to it. And that was back in 2009, 10, 2011. And he's had nothing but back surgeries, but now neck surgeries. So I worry about his spine. I mean, how many surgeries? He's got to be in the dozens of these surgeries. I don't know about maintenance surgeries. I know he had multiple ones on his lower back in TNA way back then. And he was wrestling like while he was getting that stuff done. I don't know, man. I mean, we talk about it, back when I had the infection, I just thought my back finally hit the wall and I needed surgery, much like Hogan gets. But this whole thing, and go back to Bubba the Love Sponge, well, people were talking about him. So mission accomplished, or maybe Hogan did tell him, brother, I might not make it. I don't know.
Do you know what it is about all these surgeries that people sort of constantly forget? It's not just whether the surgery is going to work. It's that if you are going to live and wake up from the anesthesia, which people seem to forget, there's always an inherent risk. I mean, he was that comedian, the one who had all the plastic surgery. She was dead funny.
Kathy Griffin?
No, she died a few years ago of surgery.
Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers, yeah. I remember reading that story. And just like, she basically had an allergic reaction or a reaction to the anesthesia and died. It's like, that's probably more common than people realise, and it's so dangerous to, you're taking your life in your hands, even for a basic surgery, and he's had dozens. It's terrifying.
And he's in his 70s too. My father-in-law's in his 70s. I have family members that are in that age range, and that is the first thing that the doctors say we need to avoid. Not because of the cutting, not because of the recovery time, and that is also another thing. He's not going to recover like he did back in TNA, and he was still back then in his late 50s, early 60s, something like that. So the anesthesia right there is the first thing they say. We can't do it because we don't know if you're going to wake up. We're putting you in such a subdued state. Even twilight is going to be dangerous, not full-blown anesthesia, intubation. And that's another thing too. With Hogan, you have that neck surgery and they intubate you. You could end up like I did and have your vocal cords, paralyzed or cut or any of that stuff. Don't take my gimmick, brother. How's that? But my God, we have Hogan and Flair in one episode that are just teetering, Yeah. I mean, it's like literally the people we grew up in our childhood now their mortality is becoming more apparent with each and every day.
On that cheery note, we're going to end the show.
I'm playing the part of James Romero, cheering everybody up.
All right, then. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Unlike Storytime with Dutch Mantel, this show carried on. We were able to, because we don't deal with news every week, we were able to pre-record a couple of things. Hopefully no one noticed, really, to be honest. Whereas the Dutch show, we had to take a couple of weeks off because my internet in the hills of Greece, wherever it was, we couldn't even watch Netflix or anything. I mean, not that we sat around watch TV. We were out in the sun, yelling at the German neighbors. You
should have recorded on the top of the mountain. You had the 5G tower right there.
I should. Patreon subscribers can hear all about that story. All right, then. That being said, thank you, everybody, for watching. We're out every single Friday on YouTube. Full episode. This one's probably going to be late because, once again, Chris has only got a day to turn it around, and he called me this morning and went, I've got a really bad migraine. It's like, oh, God. So everyone's miserable in the WSI family, I guess, at this point. But until then, we'll see you again next Friday for
episode 52.
Oh, yeah, that's the anniversary one.
That's the anniversary. I'm going to try to plan a special cold open for that one. I'm going to try to get that together this week for Chris to have it very early. But we want to thank everybody coming up on 1 year of the Stevie Richards Show. We started in late June of last year, 120,000 plus subscribers. We just can't say enough to you out there in YouTube land for subscribing, click the bell to get notified, supporting, interacting, commenting, and also supporting us on patreon.com/Stevie Richards. There's your segue, James. I want to thank all our Patreon subscribers on the $1 thank you brother tier and also our producer tier. Watch-alongs, except for the test one, every Monday. We'll eventually get that out, but he's laughing somewhere because we're ribbing him. Watch-alongs every Monday. This Monday is going to be the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express from the NWA World Tag Team title match from 1986, featuring a young Jim Cornette and also a young Big Bubba Rogers. So check that out, please. Watch-alongs on Monday, show notes, and of course you get to hear James and his Greek expedition up there, Expedition Truth on the top of the mountain in a Toyota Corolla. That's all you need to know. So thank you very much for watching this episode, and please join us for episode 52, the 1 year anniversary of the Stevie Richards Show. Confused James Romero a lot.
Yeah, I know, but what's the topic going to be? I mean, have we said that we were always going to do a 1 year special? What was the topic that we said?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
Somebody's going to do something. We're going to have something to talk about.
Yeah, but I don't want to do news. I don't want to do like a fan question things. I want to do something that like everyone wants to know, like a really specific period of time.
All right, comment below. Comment below. Let's put out a YouTube post this week for next week for a topic they want us to cover. Okay, then. So, write it in the comments of this video. I will do a YouTube community board post, whatever it's called now. I think it's called something else. Asking what one topic is like the most special topic that we should talk about and can do like 2 hours on. And by 2 hours, I mean 2 hours 40 as we're going on this. I don't think we've hit under 2 hours in like
since episode 3 or something like that. Anyway, everybody, once again, I'll do Stevie's thing. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you again next Friday for the super special 1-year anniversary.